I'm leveling up my stats in Marvel. Hey. Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 26 I've Succeeded, Taoist Master. The Spider-Man Alliance is an organization that spans the multiverse, and its purpose is to maintain the orderly operation of the multiverse, Miguel explained. The Web of Fate is the source of Spider-Man's power and the organization's means of traversing the multiverse. Miguel then looked at Russell, waiting for him to explain his understanding of the multiverse's space-time concept. Russell turned his gaze to the Ancient One. I was just making this up. I don't know anything about these things. If Gwen hadn't asked, he would have successfully shifted the topic to Miguel. The Ancient One indicated she didn't want to explain. Too much trouble, too lazy to explain. Let's talk about this Spider-Man Web of Fate disturbance. Miguel's expression darkened. This unserious little Sorcerer Supreme is a little rascal. He hadn't expected the venerable Sorcerer Supreme to be such a rascal as well. Alright, Miguel calmed himself. I'd like to hear more. The Ancient One began to explain. The Web of Fate is both the source of Spider-Man's power and the thread that weaves the destinies of Spider-Man across the multiverse. Because of its connection to Spider-Man across the multiverse, it contributes to the stability of the multiverse. After listening to the Ancient One, Miguel remained non-committal. He couldn't be sure if what the Ancient One said was right or wrong, but it aligned with the patterns he had previously observed. Ancient One, as you say, your actions have disturbed the Web of Fate, and this affected the stability of the universe. Is that right? Russell smiled broadly. Yes. Miguel's face darkened, and his center of gravity slumped. It seemed a battle was inevitable. He hadn't expected these two Sorcerers Supreme to be so unreasonable. That's not quite right either, Russell added. Disturbing the Web of Fate doesn't mean affecting the stability of the universe. Affecting the stability of the universe doesn't mean it will lead to its destruction. Russell unleashed his ultimate weapon. Miguel, your understanding of the multiverse comes from observation and summarization. You can only obtain patterns, not the truth. At this moment, I can tell you. The space-time of this universe is very stable. Empty words? Why should I believe you? Because I can perceive space-time, and you can't. The two clashed, and the atmosphere instantly froze. Russell wouldn't back down, watching the tragedy unfold before Gwen. Miguel also didn't believe the words of the self-proclaimed Sorcerer Supreme he had just met. That's right, Miguel had already begun to doubt whether these two, old and young, were truly the Sorcerer Supreme of Camartage. Ahem, the Ancient One deliberately coughed a few times to break the deadlock. Russell, go easy on him. This young man may be stubborn, but he's a good person. Yes, Russell, let's talk this out, Gwen also advised. Russell glanced at the two men with a resentful look. Do I look like someone who doesn't know what's good for me? Miguel's expression was also unpleasant. The Ancient One and Gwen's meaning was clear. They didn't have high hopes for their fight with Russell. This interruption eased the tension slightly, and the atmosphere was no longer tense. HMPH, you'd better be as you say. With a cold snort, Miguel turned and left. Russell watched Miguel's retreating figure, full of helplessness. Sigh. Dealing with good guys is so troublesome. You have to engage in verbal sparring. If it were villains, one punch would be enough. You agree, right? Kingpin, Murdoch. Temporarily putting this matter aside, Russell brought up another matter with the Ancient One. Sorcerer, you can cast a spell now. Make people forget that Spider-Man killed Peter, and what just happened. Really not going to learn? It's simple, the Ancient One asked again. No, Russell shook his head. His primary goal now was to thoroughly understand the portal spell. A spell that could traverse the multiverse with relatively low energy consumption must have a secret. You can cast the spell yourself. Just use the time stone to alter the past. Hearing Russell's answer, the Ancient One seemed uninterested. Didn't you ask me before what would happen if you altered the past? It would affect the present. To put it simply, it's like patching a perfectly good garment. Russell frowned. This didn't seem to match the Time Bureau's setting in the MCU. Seemingly sensing Russell's thoughts, the Ancient One explained, Earth 199,999 is different. That universe has a huge problem. It's a quagmire now. Even if you don't fall in, you'll get covered in mud. Russell hesitated. Sorcerer, is that alright? There are 2 more points, the Ancient One reminded him. Don't easily attempt to modify absolute timeline events. Some people with supernatural senses might notice the anomaly of altered reality. If you don't want to be discovered, keep the commotion down. Russell understood the Ancient One's implication. Don't do it lightly meant it was possible, but with thorough preparation. He could save Peter Parker, but not now. Russell took out the time stone and focused his energy. Going upstream, back to the day Gwen killed Puck the Lizard. As Puck regained his human form and was about to die, Gwen's figure was concealed. Then going downstream, back to a short time ago. Never mind, altering the past is too risky, so this part won't be changed. His mind withdrew from the time stone and returned to the present. A faint feeling of fatigue spread through his body. Opening his eyes, he saw the Ancient One looking at him with a puzzled expression. She was still holding a ball of pure golden energy. Sorcerer, let's talk this out. Russell flashed away, retreating 100 meters. The Ancient One put away the energy in her hand, puzzled. Where did you get the energy to power the time stone? Energy? Deep Blue, activate, lifespan. 25/318, 2,800, over 50,000 units of energy evaporated. Russell's vision went black. Sorcerer, you didn't tell me this spell consumes so much energy. I prepared it for you, but I didn't expect you wouldn't need it. The Ancient One scrutinized Russell again. She hadn't noticed where Russell's energy came from. It seems Russell has quite a few secrets. Another one I haven't told me. Master, Russell said with a forced smile, since you've prepared it, give it to me. The Ancient One raised an eyebrow, flicked his wrist, and a golden light entered Russell's body. Russell carefully sensed it. It was pure spiritual energy, without any impurities. Even though the panel was still upgrading, it didn't affect the absorption slurp, plus 100,000. Good stuff. Russell's eyes lit up as he looked at the Ancient One. Boss, please feed me. The Ancient One's face twitched. This time, he stared intently. He couldn't find how the energy disappeared. A moment of silence. The Ancient One threw out another ball of energy. Another ball. And another. The Ancient One began to doubt his own cultivation. Everything in the world operates, even the most subtle movements leave traces. But he had used most methods and still couldn't see how the energy disappeared. Of course, there was another insidious method, tampering with the energy. Russell coveted his energy. He wanted to see through Russell's secrets. A bet's a bet, and the Ancient One couldn't bring herself to scheme against her disciple. A month later, in the Ancient One's courtyard. Watching a portal slowly form, Russell was overjoyed. Haha. I did it. I did it. I did it. A portal opened before Russell. On one side of the portal was the Ancient One. On the other side was also the Ancient One. Chapter 27 Ivan, put on your armor and fight me fairly. The story begins on October 25, 2010. In a simple room in Moscow, Russia, Tony's press conference is being broadcast live on television. In front of the television, a frail old man lies on a bed. His son, Ivan Vanko, kneels before him. You should be on television, living a life of luxury, adored by millions. But I'm sorry. All I can give you is my knowledge. I'm sorry, son. With that, Anton Vanko passes away. The man places flowers before a tombstone, murmuring, I promise, I will make them pay. Then he turns and leaves. During this time, Tony is riding high. He learns magic, expelling missile fragments from his chest and resolving palladium poisoning. At a hearing, he confronts senators and Justin Hammer. He masters both physical and magical techniques, perfectly combining his armor with magic. Wearing the Mark IV, Tony conjures a portal in front of him with a thought. Yes, Tony has also learned to open portals with his mind. This way, he could use portal magic to aid in combat while wearing the armor. It wasn't because of Russell. The armor flew towards the portal. On the other side of the portal was Tony's seaside villa in California. Inside the villa, a party was underway. Celebrating? Fine, Tony didn't need to celebrate anything at his party. He just wanted to be happy. Tony removed his armor and entered, dancing lightly. Hi, Russell. Hi, Gwen. Russell and Gwen were also at the party. Since he could travel between two universes using portals, Russell had returned to Earth 404. Occasionally, He would pick up Gwen to come to Earth 404 to visit George's family. Gwen, want to dance? Seeing Tony jumping around, Russell was tempted and extended his hand to invite Gwen. I still prefer the drums, Gwen pointed to the instrument beside her. But, Russell, I accept. Gwen shook Russell's hand and accepted the invitation. The two danced gracefully, moving towards the center of the ball, attracting everyone's attention. Gwen moved with the grace and fluidity of a professional ballerina. Someone's trying to cause trouble. Sensing the intruder, Russell remained calm and continued dancing. He carefully observed the newcomer, making their features crystal clear. Ivan Vanko? The feud between the Vanko and Stark families? I hope you don't disturb my dance, or it'll become our personal feud. Russell didn't intend to interfere in Tony and Ivan's fight. Although Russell was ruthless, leaving almost no survivors, he was a reasonable and civilized man. This was a matter between Ivan Vanko and Tony Stark. It had nothing to do with Russell. Russell had no right to stop Ivan Vanko's revenge. More importantly, Ivan Vanko was no match for Tony. After the dance, Russell pulled Gwen to a corner. Faced with Gwen's questioning gaze, Russell explained, "There's going to be a good show later, we'll just watch from here." A good show? Gwen's ears twitched, as if she'd heard something, and she asked, "Should we remind Tony?" "No need." Russell shook his head. "Personal grudges, we don't get involved." Boom. Boom. Bang. Accompanied by several booming sounds, the walls collapsed. Ivan strode into the party hall with an arrogant air, his chest exposed. Bang. A whip cracked through the ground. Ivan grinned maliciously, looking at Tony in the crowd. "Oh ho." Tony strode out with an exaggerated gait. "Sir, what brings you to my party?" Upon seeing Tony, Ivan didn't say a word, and lashed out with a whip. Tony, seeing this, dodged somewhat awkwardly, and mocked, "How rude of you." Attacking without a word, Ivan continued to swing the whip as he walked towards Tony. Seeing Ivan approaching, Tony remained unconcerned, unaware of any danger. He already had a plan. "Tony, watch out." Pepper, who was standing nearby, finally realized what was happening and quickly warned Tony. Then she and Happy went to find weapons to help Tony. "I'm annoyed that you've ruined the party," Tony said, snapping his fingers with his right hand. "Come down when you're ready to talk." Two golden beams opened beneath Ivan's feet and above his head. Loki himself endorsed the portal. "Freefall, you deserve to enjoy." "Suitable," Ivan exclaimed, confused. But he quickly recovered, swinging his whip to try and grab the ground for balance. Sizzle. With a flash of electricity, the whip was sliced in two by the edge of the portal. Oh, and this too. Another portal opened as Ivan free-falled past. A mechanical arm reached out and precisely removed the miniature reactor from his chest. Then it was delivered to Tony. Tony picked up the miniature reactor, examining it closely. Pretty advanced technology, though it has some flaws, but it's a decent imitation. "I don't understand. You could make a lot of money with it with just a few tweaks. Why did you attack me?" With that, Tony unleashed a burst of energy, catching Ivan and slowing him down slightly. Then, he closed the portal. Bang. Ivan crashed to the ground. After lying there for a moment, Ivan slowly struggled to his feet. "Stop with your tricks. Put on your armor and fight me fairly." Tony shrugged. "You've already lost." He gestured to the broken whiplash and the miniature reactor in his hand. Ivan was silent. He had intended to storm into Tony's party. In front of everyone, he would challenge Iron Man with his technology. As long as he made the god bleed, there would be a constant stream of challengers. Unexpectedly, Ivan stubbornly insisted, "I didn't lose. My technology didn't lose. Your technology." Tony pointed to the reactor in his hand, laughing. "You mean, this replica?" "This isn't a replica," Ivan argued. "Your Stark family are the thieves." "Thieves? Are you talking about yourself?" Tony held up the reactor in his hand. "Where did I get my blueprints?" "My father, Anton Vanko." "Never heard of him." Ivan raised his hand and pointed to Tony's chest. "You're not dead because of my father." "What does it have to do with your father?" "The arc reactor was developed by my father and Howard Stark. Without my father, you would have died in Afghanistan long ago." "But palladium poisoning doesn't taste good, does it?" Haha. Ivan laughed twice, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He slumped to the ground, giving up resisting. Clearly, the fall had seriously injured him. Tony didn't respond. In his youth, his relationship with his father was strained. He didn't know much about his father. Who was Anton Vanko? What was his connection to the Stark family? Tony needed to investigate these things. Take him to the police station first. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28: A Special Date. The party ended abruptly, leaving his newly hired personal assistant, Natalie, to see the guests off. Tony went straight to his studio. Jarvis: yes, sir. Investigate the relationship between Howard Stark and Anton Vanko. Also, Ivan Vanko's biographical file. Yes, sir. After giving Jarvis his instructions, Tony sat down at his workstation. Placing the arc reactor he'd taken from Ivan Vanko on the workbench, Tony paused, lost in thought. Howard Stark, what kind of person are you? To appropriate the work of two people for commercial gain? A complex mix of emotions welled up inside Tony. He was a proud man and despised such behavior. But this man was his father. Although their relationship was strained, they weren't really close. Sir, Jarvis's voice rang out. The results are in. The data comes from the SHIELD database and the CIA database, Howard Stark's autobiography. Anton Vanko was Howard Stark's partner. The two jointly developed the arc reactor. Later, they disagreed on the use of the finished product. Anton Vanko wanted to make a huge profit from it, while Howard Stark believed it should be used to benefit all mankind. Afterward, Anton Vanko secretly sold the reactor technology, which was discovered by SHIELD and the military. After being exposed, he was deported back to his country. As for Ivan Vanko, I'm sorry, sir. His information has been processed and cannot be found online. I suggest an on-site investigation in Siberia. Tony breathed a sigh of relief. It seems he doesn't need to despise the old man who died many years ago. Seemingly remembering something, Tony asked, Ivan Vanko is Russian? Yes, sir. Call Natalie in. Yes, sir. A moment later, a woman about 1.7 meters tall with a graceful figure and long, wavy, reddish-brown hair walked in. Boss, you wanted to see me. The person who entered was none other than Natasha Romanoff, the SHIELD agent known as Black Widow. Tony turned to look at her as she entered the room. Only when she stood before him and asked did he snap out of his reverie and order, how much do you know about Russia? Get someone to Siberia to investigate Ivan Vanko, the one who caused the scene at the party. Although she heard him clearly, Natasha, out of professionalism, confirmed again. Only by loving what you do can you become a top agent. Tony nodded slightly and affirmed, yes, okay, boss. Anything else? No. Tony shook his head, indicating only one thing. Okay, boss, I'll be going now. With that, Natasha, in her high heels, strode away. Leaving Tony's studio, Natasha returned to her room. She shuddered slightly. Her makeup remained the same, but her entire demeanor had transformed from that of a charming assistant to that of a cold, glamorous agent. While turning on her computer and making a show of contacting someone to investigate Ivan Vanko in Siberia, she took out her earphones and put them on. Her fingers tapped seemingly unconsciously, but in fact, in a specific rhythm. She was typing Morse code. After a moment, the tapping stopped, and the message was sent. She had sent a brief summary of what happened at tonight's party back to SHIELD. Soon, a short message came through the earphones. New instructions, meet with Tony Stark. Natasha tapped the earphones, responding in Morse code. Beep beep. Received. On the space carrier, Nick Fury's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was thinking. Tony hadn't refuted what Ivan Vanko had said when he left. It seemed his palladium poisoning was quite severe. So, the time had come to try to win over Iron Man again. Nick Fury's gaze shifted to a folder on the computer desktop. The folder's name, Avengers. He opened the folder. Several files had already been created. Looking at the second file, Iron Man Tony Stark, Nick Fury smiled confidently. Their gaze shifted upwards, landing on the first line, Russell the Wizard of Camartage. A frown appeared on their faces. They had assumed Russell, powerless and insignificant in New York, would easily run into trouble, offering ample opportunities to win him over. But things had taken a turn for the worse. On one hand, Russell kept a low profile. In reality, he had slipped away to Earth 65. On the other hand, everyone he encountered was unusually friendly. Where was the racial discrimination from the American people? Where were the Queen's thugs and gangsters? No one seemed to be causing him any trouble. Upon closer observation, the SHIELD agent discovered that Russell appeared to possess telepathic abilities. Under his mental manipulation, ordinary people were completely unable to harbor ill will towards him. Hopefully, after winning over Tony, they could use this to recruit Russell into the Avengers. Thump. Thump. Two figures landed on Natasha's window in quick succession. The first was Ghost Spider-Man Gwen, the second was Wizard Spider-Man Russell. Thump thump. Gwen tapped lightly on the window twice and began her incessant chatter. "Hello, Miss Natalie. The friendly neighborhood Ghost Spider-Man of New York reminds you. It's late at night, so get some rest and don't stay up late. Even if you still have work to finish, you should." Natasha was speechless, but still smiled and said, "Okay, I understand, Ghost Spider-Man. How many people would stay up late if they didn't have work to finish? Good night, Miss Natalie." Gwen waved goodbye with a flourish and shot a web into the night sky. Natasha whispered, "Good night, Ghost Spider-Man, Gwen." Russell tapped rhythmically on the window. He used to envy people who knew Morse code. Especially those who could pretend to reach into their pockets to scratch an itch, but actually use the opportunity to pass messages. So, after achieving superhuman abilities, Russell specifically went to learn it. Beep 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 beep, beep beep beep. Sweet dreams, Natasha. Natasha's face stiffened. "You're trying to keep me awake. How can I have sweet dreams?" After leaving Tony's mansion, Russell and Gwen changed into their Spider-Man suits and began their date. Well, their date was a little unusual. The two swung back and forth through the night sky, fighting crime and helping citizens together. With Russell's powerful sensory abilities, wherever there was evil, there was Spider-Man. Tonight, friendly neighbor Spider-Man has arrived in the City of Angels, Los Angeles. Tony's mansion is near Los Angeles, California, not in New York. The bad guys in Los Angeles are in for a rough time. How Gwen's silvery laughter echoed through the Los Angeles sky. She was very happy tonight. One was that she had helped many people, the other was that Ghost Spider-Man finally had a partner. Gwen Stacy still had her father, George Stacy. Ghost Spider-Man, however, only faced misunderstanding and doubt. Ghost Spider-Man's first 2 years as a superhero hadn't been smooth. Gwen Stacy's life hadn't been easy either. Until she met you, Russell. The moonlight was beautiful, but it gradually sank behind the western mountains. The beautiful time was coming to an end. At the top of Watts Tower, Russell and Gwen sat side by side, waiting for the sunrise. The sun peeked out, painting the sky a rosy hue. "Did you notice the sky, Gwen? It's beautiful." "Not as beautiful as you." Russell was the man the Avengers longed for but could never have. Chapter 29 Russell, "I only left to grind for a few days, and Tony died?" Happy times always fly by, even though Russell secretly stretched that moment out. After sunrise, Russell reluctantly bid farewell to Gwen. She was still a student and had to go back to class. Back at his lodgings, Russell took off his clothes and packed away all his other belongings. He was going to grind attribute points. He took a step and arrived in a void. Ahead lay a red dwarf star, Proxima Centauri, about 4.22 light-years from Earth. With a swift movement, Russell flew rapidly towards the core of Proxima Centauri. His innate energy absorption activated, continuously absorbing the surrounding light, heat, and ionizing radiation. On average, he could gain 7,777 attribute points per day. If it were Russell a few months ago, he naturally wouldn't have been able to penetrate deep into the core of a star unscathed. But 3 months ago, Russell completed his second upgrade and maxed out the third stage of attributes. Deep Blue, activate, name, Russell, God Race, attribute points. 133, 4,396 invincible body. 100 talent 1 energy absorption, can absorb any energy and convert it into attribute points. Talent 2 attribute transfer, attribute points can be used to enhance the divine body. Description, upgrading in progress, estimated upgrade time is 9 months. That's right, without the reader's knowledge, Russell has quietly completed his second upgrade. He has also invested most of the energy gifted by the blood god boss into it and is currently undergoing his third upgrade. After the second upgrade was completed, the attribute panel changed. The lifespan column changed to attribute points, meaning that Russell will no longer be limited by lifespan. Physique, perception, and spirit are combined into invincible body. Each point of invincible body attribute requires 30,000 attribute points. The value of 1 point of invincible body attribute is equivalent to the full amount of the second stage. In essence, the attribute point consumption has neither increased nor decreased. In Russell's perception, his body and soul have become one. The combination of the two gives him a variety of divine abilities and terrifying defensive power. Now, seeing the Ancient One and the other two, he doesn't even flinch at the threat level, as a sign of respect. At this stage, as long as the powerful ancient gods, who are merely background figures, don't intervene, Russell will still die even if he courts death. Black holes, the cores of massive stars, supernova explosions, cultivation knows no bounds. Russell plans to sleep here for a few days, scratch that, grind for a few days, sigh. Absorbing energy from the real universe is far less efficient than converting it into magical energy. Blood God, I miss you. Will you come again? Stark Tower, reception room. Tony sat casually, looking at Nick Fury opposite him. Natalie said that SHIELD has information on Howard and Anton, but needs to be handed over in person. Yes, Nick Fury nodded. It's classified, there's no room for error. Tony blew on his coffee, lazily saying, okay, hand it over. Under his watchful eye in Stark Tower, there wouldn't be any problems. Nick Fury gave him a wink. Natasha pulled out a vial and, with swift, precise movements, was about to inject it into Tony. At the crucial moment, Tony twisted, rolled twice, and dodged it in a sorry state. Nick Fury explained, this is an antidote. It can temporarily alleviate the discomfort caused by palladium poisoning. I'm perfectly fine, Tony said irritably. Palladium poisoning? I've had that kind of minor problem for a long time. Suddenly, Tony clutched his head, collapsing to the ground in excruciating pain. Tony, quick, call a doctor, there's something in my brain. A few seconds later, Tony stopped struggling. Initial tests revealed massive brain hemorrhage and severe damage. Tony Stark had lost vital signs. Tony is dead. Pepper Potts, unsteady on her feet, couldn't help but crouch down, covering her mouth and sobbing. Tony's security team watched Nick Fury and Natasha intently. Nick Fury and Natasha exchanged bewildered glances. At this moment, Happy stepped forward. Jarvis, pull up the surveillance footage from back then. Thank God, the footage testified that they did nothing. The antidote wasn't injected, it really wasn't. After watching the footage, everyone was even more puzzled. Tony's last words, something's in my head, combined with the cause of Tony's death. What did this mean? A new type of nanoweapon? Nick Fury's expression changed. He thought of an old friend. I'm not dead yet, I can still be saved. I'm not dead yet, I can still be saved. I'm not dead yet, I can still be saved. Tony's spirit walked to the group, calling out repeatedly. To his dismay, there was no response. Tony, in a daze, Pepper heard Tony's voice and cried out. Instinctively, Pepper turned her head to look in one direction. Tony heard the voice and also turned his head. Their eyes met. Illusion and reality intertwined. At this moment, Tony seemed to understand something. Tony is dead, my condolences. Pepper, Happy walked to Pepper's side, patted her shoulder, and tried to comfort her while fighting back his grief. No, Tony isn't dead, Pepper smiled through her tears. I saw him. Everyone followed Pepper's gaze. No one was there. Pepper, Happy tried to comfort her again, but Pepper raised her hand to stop him. Quiet, Pepper, can you hear me? Tony walked up to Pepper and asked. Yes, Pepper nodded slightly. Contact Russell, he has a way to save me. Yes, Pepper nodded emphatically this time. She was too excited to speak. Soon, the phone was dialed. Hello, the number you dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later. Pepper dialed again. Shit, Tony cursed under his breath. Pepper, put on my armor and go to the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York. Tell the people there what happened, and have them pass on the message to the Ancient One. The rest of the journey went smoothly. Upon seeing the armor, the people of the New York Sanctum Sanctorum recognized it. It belonged to their junior, Tony Stark. The news quickly reached the Ancient One. The Ancient One pondered for a moment, seemingly thinking of something amusing. He smiled and forwarded the message to Russell. Tony's physical body is dead. Come back and resurrect him, of course, not with a cell phone. Russell was at the core of Proxima Centauri. No cell phone on the market could be brought in. Even if he overcame all difficulties, it would take more than 4 years to send the message. By then, it would be too late. Upon receiving the message, Russell was somewhat surprised. Tony was dead? Had the plot of Iron Man 2 fallen apart? He should have stayed a few more days to watch the show. Exploding with speed, Russell left the core of Proxima Centauri at an extremely fast pace. Massive celestial bodies distort the surrounding space-time, making it very difficult to directly open a portal. Of course, Russell could do it, but there was no guarantee it wouldn't affect the stability of the Proxima Centauri core. Returning to the star's surface, he sensed that the surrounding spacetime was relatively stable. Russell took a step back into his room, put on his robes, and donned the time stone. Look in the mirror and tidy yourself up a bit more. Junior brother, your senior brother is here to save you. Thanks to Reader Hellish Warrior, this is the first time this newbie has received a monthly pass. Also, let me explain why in Doctor Strange 1, Doctor Strange could intentionally let Christine see his astral projection, but Tony couldn't. The book's setting is that it's related to proficiency. Doctor Strange frequently has astral projections and studies all night, so his proficiency is higher. Chapter 30 Russell. Stark Tower Lobby. Tony's physical body was placed in the center. Pepper Potts and Happy stood on one side, Nick Fury and Natasha on the other. Suddenly, a golden flame appeared out of thin air, then spun rapidly. A hole opened in the center of the flame, the opening widening continuously. A portal gradually formed, and accompanied by streaks of various colors of light, a figure slowly walked out. He wore a simple yellow robe, with an accessory on his chest. The accessory was inlaid with a green gemstone, radiating a mysterious glow. Sorcerer Russell. The four of them involuntarily greeted Russell in their own way. Seeing that they were intimidated by his aura, Russell smiled. He slowly withdrew the mental energy that had been pressing down on them. If the atmosphere wasn't enough, power would make up for it. Russell, Tony's soul pursed his lips. Russell's faint grandeur couldn't fool him. Please, help me, Russell smiled and nodded to Tony's soul. The play had to go on. Russell walked to Tony's physical body and formed a hand seal in front of his chest. The ornament on his chest floated and slowly rotated, its inlaid gem pointing towards Tony's body. A beam of green light shot out from the gem, illuminating Tony's body. The next moment, everyone seemed to see time reverse within Tony's body. Tony's body returned to its seat in the reception room. Seeing this, everyone's eyes lit up with amazement. Only Tony's soul, walking towards the body, muttered, "Why did you have to drag this out for 10 minutes when you could have done it in a few seconds? And do you even know how to form hand seals? You know nothing, just pretending." Russell smiled without saying a word. "Wait until this show is over, then see how I mock you. Here it comes." Outside Universe 404, in endless dimensions. A gaze filled with resentment looked at Tony and Russell. Tony seemed to sense something and couldn't help but shiver. Russell looked towards the source of the gaze. Mephisto, the Demon King, the Lord of Hell, and once the supreme ruler of the demon realm, Satan. Is he the Ancient One's target this time? This is no easy task. Before coming to Stark Tower, Russell went to Kamartaj. Something unusual must be going on. The Ancient One could resurrect Tony's body herself, there was no need to call him back. After Russell arrived, the Ancient One spoke frankly. When Tony died, she sensed two gazes from beyond the universe. One was not hostile, merely curious, the other was filled with greed and evil. She wanted to play another game with Russell, to trick the owner of the second gaze. Russell tried to buy time, while she located the coordinates of the gaze's owner and confirmed their identity, then formulated a plan. Seeing Russell dare to meet her gaze, Mephisto revealed a sinister smile. Russell responded with a smile. Mephisto's smile widened. Russell's smile also widened. "Mephisto, I remember your appearance and the aura of your soul. I'll make a proper mess of you after you die." "Russell, the Ancient One has located your coordinates. Even if I can't set up a scheme to make a killing this time, I'll come knocking on your door once I advance." The two tacitly withdrew their gazes in unison. They were both looking forward to the future. As soon as Tony's soul returned to his body, he moved slightly, preparing to adjust. Pepper rushed over and hugged him, bursting into tears. Tony was somewhat at a loss to comfort Pepper. The others silently lowered their heads, and no one noticed Russell's strangeness. Except for Tony, because he was one of the parties involved. Tony cut to the chase and asked directly, "Russell, what was that just now?" "Mephisto, a man who loves you but cannot have you." Tony knew who Mephisto was. He was a proper sorcerer who read books every day. Unlike Russell, who was uneducated. Speak human language, he covets your soul, My soul is valuable. Confident people always think differently from ordinary people. Tony was not surprised but pleased, a satisfied smile appearing on his lips. He has a good eye. After finishing this conversation, Tony's expression turned serious. Thank you very much this time. I'll personally come to thank you later. Although he knew that asking Russell to investigate would easily find the killer, proud Tony wasn't the type to run home to his parents after being bullied. He would take revenge himself. Russell was surprised. Did this mean he was being told to leave? What a jerk. After nodding to the others, Russell took a step and disappeared. As for the portal, Russell no longer needed to open it. He just vanished like that? Don't you need to slowly open the portal? Happy suddenly asked. No need. He was just putting on an act, Tony said irritably. Then, he looked at Nick Fury. Director Fury, perhaps we should have a good talk. Tony, in his spirit form, had clearly seen Nick Fury's change of expression when he saw the death replay. After a moment's hesitation, Nick Fury finally spoke. This method of infiltrating an enemy's body reminds me of a technology and a person. Dr. Hank Pym, and his Pym particles. Pym particles are, so, you suspect that the person who entered my brain and caused the damage is this Hank Pym? Nick Fury nodded gravely. Even if it wasn't Dr. Pym, he's probably involved. Then what are we waiting for? Tony said impatiently. Find him first. I've already sent people to search his residence. We'll have news soon, Nick Fury explained. What Tony could think of, he could certainly think of as well. As long as it wasn't related to technology. One more thing, Dr. Pym is one of the founders of SYNOPSIS, and he understands the way SYNOPSIS operates very well. Tony, I hope you can also participate in the investigation, okay? A fierce glint flashed in Tony's eyes. He wasn't a nice guy, he held grudges. Terrorists in a certain region could testify. Your Majesty. A succubus swayed her slender waist as she approached Mephisto, tugging at his shoulder. Have one, please. Alright, as you wish. This is incredibly delicious. Eating it is like floating on air. This feeling is like gaining a precious soul. A precious soul. Aha, Mephisto roared, slamming his hand on the table. Your Majesty, please calm down. Your Majesty, please calm down. The little succubus hurriedly knelt down, trembling. Huff huff, get up, beauty, this has nothing to do with you. The little succubus stood up shakily. That mage, isn't he afraid of me? How dare he look at me after ruining my plans? He even smiled. What the hell are you smiling at? Aha, Mephisto roared again, slamming his hand on the table again. Your Majesty, please calm down. Your Majesty, please calm down. The little succubus, still unsteady on her feet, knelt down again. Mephisto turned his head and caught a glimpse of spring light, a smile involuntarily creeping onto his lips. Rise, beauty. The little succubus stood up. Aha, Mephisto roared again, slamming his hand on the table once more. Chapter 31 Reactions from all parties. While S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were searching Dr. Pym's house, no one noticed a camera, shrunk by Pym particles, pointed directly at them. Did S.H.I.E.L.D. suspect me so quickly? I wonder how long it will take to discover that system vulnerability. If it is, accessing the S.H.I.E.L.D. database again will allow me to be tracked and located. I need to speed things up. And what's with Tony Stark? He's still alive despite his brain damage, forcing me to expand my attack range before killing him and exposing my identity. Stark Tower. Coulson, how's the investigation going, Dr. Pym is missing, along with his suit. It really is you, Dr. Pym. But, why? Nick Fury was puzzled. Why would Dr. Pym kill Tony? Although he and Howard didn't get along, it was just a minor conflict. Sir, at that moment, Jarvis's voice rang out. Detected. A file related to you in SHIELD has recently been accessed illegally. Along with this file, multiple files under the same folder Avengers have been read. Tracing the IP address led to Dr. Pym's community. Nick Fury turned to Tony, his lips twitching. So, you can just come and go as you please with the SHIELD database? Don't look at me like that. Your SHIELD firewall system is too rudimentary, Tony explained. Nick Fury nodded calmly. Are we all on your Avengers list? Tony suddenly asked. Yes, Nick Fury nodded. There was no need to hide this from those present. Dr. Pym was the first to assassinate me. Was it because I was number one on your list? Touching his mustache, Tony guessed. That damn competitive spirit. Nick Fury remained silent. This was a difficult question to answer, one that could easily offend someone. However, a glint flashed in Nick Fury's eyes. What if Tony's guess was correct? Remind Clinton and Russell that they might also be on Dr. Pym's assassination list. Also, send people to stake out Dr. Banner's location. Although Dr. Pym's motives were unclear, knowing his target made things easier. Nick Fury wasn't worried about Russell being assassinated. If Dr. Pym actually found Russell, he was out of luck. In the Hull dimension, after their passionate encounter, Mephisto smoked a cigarette. This was something he learned on Earth, though he forgot which universe's Earth it was. With his anger subsided, Mephisto began his scheme. The pattern of that magic circle was unmistakable, Camartage of Vishanti. This meant obtaining the soul of that despicable sorcerer, Russell, wouldn't be so easy. No wonder he had been so confident in provoking him. The souls of Camartage sorcerers, barring unforeseen circumstances, would go to the dimension of Vishanti after death, instead of being drawn to one of the various hells. As for intercepting him along the way, in his prime, he might have been able to try. Now, trying would only lead to his death. The moment his soul was taken, a group of sorcerers stormed his door. Even if he defeated them, the Vishanti might personally intervene. He needed to find a way to avoid the Vishanti's gaze. Mephisto stroked his calloused chin, his eyes thoughtful. This was troublesome. This is troublesome, sorcerer, Russell said to the Ancient One, his face contorted with worry. I didn't expect it to be Mephisto. He's not easy to fool. Don't worry, Russell. The Ancient One calmly brewed a pot of tea, gesturing for Russell to sit down. In her years as the Sorcerer Supreme, whether through direct confrontation or by outsmarting, skinning and devouring all sorts of demons, none could match Mephisto's cunning and caution. In the past, the Ancient One wouldn't easily provoke such an opponent. But now, looking at Russell, she plus Russell plus the Ancient One, in the comics, were already invincible. It was just a matter of how much energy they gained. Let's wait and see how things develop. The opportunity will come, Russell nodded. Mephisto was a formidable opponent, there was no need to rush. Mage, I'll head back now. With a step, Russell returned to the bookstore. Under the influence of his mental abilities, no one noticed anything amiss with Russell's sudden appearance. The events were beginning to unfold, and he needed to stay on Earth for the next few days, avoiding unnecessary travel. He didn't want to be unreachable if anything happened. Russell had placed several mental suggestion spells on the bookstore area. Calm down, no talking, focus on reading. Gradually, people noticed the bookstore's security and atmosphere were exceptionally good, and reading and studying efficiency had greatly improved. The bookstore saw a significant increase in foot traffic compared to before. Many of these customers were students of various ages. Russell was pleased to see this. Meanwhile, Dr. Pym routinely checked to see if Russell was in the bookstore. Tony had guessed correctly, he was indeed acting according to the list. His purpose in assassinating the Avengers was to sabotage SHIELD's plan to form the Avengers, thus seeking revenge against SHIELD. Naturally, he started with the most important targets. Unfortunately, Russell had been spending the last few days on Proxima Centauri, seemingly grinding for the game. After waiting in vain, Dr. Pym decided to target Tony first. Looks like my luck is pretty good. I just killed Tony, and you're back, Dr. Pym muttered to himself. He donned the Ant-Man suit, shrunk his body, and headed towards the bookstore. Everything went smoothly. Until he entered the bookstore. Since Janet disappeared and Hope died, I haven't read a book in a long time. Dr. Pym's mind drifted to memories of years ago when his wife and daughter were alive. He sat in a chair, reading a book while watching his wife tutor his daughter. Such warm and loving times. Grandpa, thank you for tutoring me. I'm going home now, goodbye. A voice suddenly pulled Dr. Pym back to reality. He instinctively replied, goodbye, Aaron. Huh? What was I just doing? Dr. Pym was horrified and frantically turned to look around. Suddenly, his eyes met those of a young man. The owner of that gaze was none other than his assassination target, Russell. Dr. Pym, the Pym particle. Perhaps, the battlefield with Mephisto could be set in the quantum realm. Dr. Pym didn't remember how he escaped the bookstore. But he knew he had just danced a dance with death. Lost and disoriented, Dr. Pym even forgot to avoid the security cameras. Fortunately, his whereabouts were concealed. Unfortunately, the one who helped him wasn't human. Mephisto, dressed like a gentleman, looked at Dr. Pym, a smile playing on his lips. Though lacking in refinement, He was still a rather good soul. Add to that his usefulness, and it was another highly profitable deal. Tony Stark, and that damned sorcerer. See you in the quantum realm. Happy Mid-Autumn Festival to all my fellow readers. Chapter 32 Mephisto. Hank, do you want your daughter or not? Unbeknownst to him, Dr. Pym found himself in a retro-style bar. He wanted to have a few drinks to calm his nerves. The bartender was an old man, leaning on a cane, who looked to be about the same age as Dr. Pym. Unlike Dr. Pym, who was weathered and distraught, the bartender was neatly dressed and sprightly. After a few drinks, Dr. Pym's eyes glazed over. In his dazed state, he heard the bartender say something to him. Dr. Pym, I have a way to resurrect your daughter. But there's one condition: as long as I can resurrect hope, I'll accept any condition. The bartender's eyes narrowed, and a smile played on his lips. All right, let's sign the contract. With that, the bartender handed him a parchment scroll and a pen. Dr. Pym took it casually and strained to read the words on the scroll. Mephisto resurrects daughter Hope Van Dyne. Hank accepts one condition. Hiccup, buddy, you're really funny, making it sound so real. Dr. Pym didn't take it seriously and casually signed his name. Then, he slumped onto the bar and fell asleep, muttering Janet Hope over and over. Ha ha, ha 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 ha, Mephisto laughed, putting away the scroll. He was very pleased with himself. For a devil, a perfect deal is supreme pleasure. The complete contents of the parchment scroll were: Mephisto agrees to Hank Pym's request to resurrect his daughter Hope Van Dyne, and Hank Pym unconditionally accepts any condition Mephisto may impose. A promise doesn't have to be kept. One condition can be countless conditions. In other words, Mephisto didn't have to pay any price this time, yet he obtained Dr. Pym's entire fortune, including his life and soul. Well, he did pay a small price, a few drinks. Dr. Pym, bring Iron Man Tony Stark and the Sorcerer Russell to the quantum realm. The King of Demons, the Lord of Hell, the Supreme Demon, Mephisto, will resurrect your daughter. The voice entered Dr. Pym's ears and then echoed in his mind. Although he wouldn't keep his promises, Mephisto wouldn't skimp on any of the pie-in-the-sky promises. Otherwise, how could he fully motivate his contractors and get them to work for him? This was a lesson Mephisto learned from a certain ghost rider: if you want a horse to run, you have to let it see the grass. The next morning, Dr. Pym awoke slowly. First, he recalled the scene of his family reunion in his dream, and a smile crept onto his face. Then, remembering the strange contract he had signed, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. Sigh, it seems I missed Janet and Hope too much. I even hallucinated after getting drunk. There are no devils in this world. Without warning, Mephisto's voice rang in Dr. Pym's mind. Dr. Pym, bring Iron Man Tony Stark and Wizard Russell to the quantum realm. The King of Demons, the Lord of Hell, the Supreme Demon King Mephisto, will resurrect your daughter. As the words ended, Mephisto's figure slowly materialized before Dr. Pym. Mephisto stretched out his hand, palm up, and slowly opened it. Boom, a phantom flame appeared, within which lay a figure. It was none other than Dr. Pym's beloved daughter, Hope Van Dyne. Dr. Pym, do you want your daughter? Give her back to me. Give her back to me. Dr. Pym, overwhelmed, stumbled towards Mephisto, his hands reaching for the figure in the flames. Take Iron Man Tony Stark and the Sorcerer Russell to the quantum realm, and I will resurrect your daughter, Mephisto repeated, his tone calm yet alluring. Dr. Pym took a deep breath, calming himself, and slowly spoke. Tony Stark is dead. Mephisto remained silent, only smiling at Dr. Pym. Seeing this, Dr. Pym asked, Tony Stark isn't dead. Mephisto nodded. Not too stupid, Dr. Pym exclaimed in disbelief. How is that possible? I clearly scrambled his brains. A thought flashed through Dr. Pym's mind, and he suppressed his excitement, continuing, did someone resurrect him? Mephisto nodded. After you killed Tony Stark, the Sorcerer Russell resurrected him. He was deliberately guiding the conversation to gain Dr. Pym's trust. See, even a sorcerer can resurrect Tony Stark, whom you killed. For me, the Lord of Hell, resurrecting your daughter is a piece of cake. Dr. Pym rubbed his hands together, pacing back and forth excitedly. Tony Stark could be resurrected, so Hope could too. The task was to bring back Tony Stark and Russell. The thought of Russell made Dr. Pym pale and break out in a cold sweat. The fear Russell instilled in him deepened the night before. He couldn't forget that look that seemed capable of killing. No, that look that had already killed him once. After a moment of stunned silence, Dr. Pym decided to negotiate with Mephisto. 1 for 1, Tony Stark for hope. Mephisto raised an eyebrow. Negotiating with the devil? Alright, I'll await your good news, Mephisto readily agreed. His figure vanished, along with the phantom of hope in his hand. It seemed this sorcerer was stronger than he had anticipated. He knew Dr. Pym had attempted to assassinate Russell last night, but couldn't investigate and didn't know what had happened. Dr. Pym's bargaining, in his own eyes, was a successful negotiation. But in Mephisto's eyes, it was merely a matter of whether the author would update 2 chapters at once or update 1 chapter first, then the next. Unfortunately, Dr. Pym, the author, could only update 1 chapter. He needed to change his plan, a pincer movement. Trapping Tony Stark in the quantum realm, then finding a way to reveal the coordinates to Russell, luring him into the quantum realm as well. Then wipe them all out. In the quantum realm, even the Vishanti couldn't possibly know what had happened. Yado's house, a man and a woman, one with a buzz cut and the other bald, sat side by side on the sofa, watching television. The figures on the screen were Mephisto and Dr. Pym. However, the plot was slightly delayed. The two were actually Russell and the Ancient One. Of course, they couldn't directly spy on Mephisto without being detected. But they could access the recordings. This was the wonder of the Time Stone, this was the Sorcerer Supreme. On the television screen, Dr. Pym watched his daughter's disappearing figure with reluctance. He quickly rallied, mustered his spirits, donned the Ant-Man suit, and took the Pym particles. He set off for Stark Tower. He admitted he didn't have the courage to face Russell again. But Tony Stark, Iron Man? A playboy, a rich second generation. A bargaining chip. Today, he would infiltrate Stark Tower again. He would use the Pym particles to send Tony Stark to the quantum realm, in exchange for his daughter Hope. Thinking of this, Dr. Pym's face lit up with a smile. P.S. Dr. Pym's inner thoughts are invisible to Russell, who is watching TV. Please continue reading. Chapter 33 What If, Pym Particle Whip Suit. Dr. Pym set off confidently. His easy success in his first assassination attempt on Tony, coupled with the psychological advantage of a senior over a junior, led Dr. Pym to underestimate Tony. Soon, he would pay the price for his contempt. Sir, emergency. Unmarked ants detected. These ants are suspected to be controlled by Dr. Pym. We are monitoring their movements. Jarvis's voice startled Tony from his thoughts. After his first major setback, Tony had obtained files on Dr. Pym and the Ant-Man suit from Nick Fury. Several lines of defense had been set up at Stark Tower against Ant-Man. One of these was using special elements to mark ants in and around Stark Tower. If any unmarked ants approached, Jarvis would immediately monitor them and, after algorithmic analysis, inform Tony. Dr. Pym's target wasn't Dr. Banner, but me? How did he know I wasn't dead? A series of questions flooded Tony's mind, but there were other more pressing matters at the moment. Jarvis, tell Pepper and Happy to go to the safe house. Also, secretly spread the word that I'm in the studio. Tony didn't have Jarvis conduct a full search of the building for the original Ant-Man, Dr. Pym. That would easily alert him. Instead, he wanted to proactively release information, telling Dr. Pym where he was. He wanted to lure him into a trap. Of course, this was slightly more aggressive. Just a tiny bit, not a huge amount. Tony opened a portal and went to another of his mansions in California. He wouldn't actually stay in the studio waiting for Dr. Pym to assassinate him. Leaving behind a modified unmanned suit to impersonate him would suffice. Meanwhile, Dr. Pym, with the help of various ant colonies, infiltrated Tony's studio through various conduits. A playboy is a playboy. He learned his lesson once and hasn't learned a thing or two. Dr. Pym observed his surroundings, searching for Tony's location. Inside the studio, a person in a suit was sitting at a workbench, seemingly adjusting something. How cautious, alone in the studio, hiding in a metal box. But did you think hiding inside would be safe? Dr. Pym quietly approached the suit and took out a shrunken Pym particle. This mission was surprisingly easy. Hope. Just wait. Daddy's coming to save you. The Pym particle touched the unmanned suit, and the suit shrank rapidly upon contact, until it reached subatomic level and fell into the quantum realm. Beep beep beep. A buzzing sound rang out in the workroom. A trap. Dr. Pym realized this and was about to retreat when a specially designed glass dome rose from all sides, trapping the area where the suit had been. The shrunken Dr. Pym was also inside. In California, Tony, watching through the surveillance cameras, was also somewhat surprised. His first plan was to lure Dr. Pym into the unmanned suit's tunnel and set a trap to capture him. Unexpectedly, Dr. Pym had no intention of infiltrating the suit. Instead, he used some weapon to make the unmanned suit shrink rapidly and disappear. Fortunately, he had a backup plan. Tony's voice boomed through the loudspeaker, "Dr. Pym, I've got you." Dr. Pym's face was ashen. On one hand, he hadn't expected to be outmaneuvered by a junior, the son of Howard Stark, whom he was at odds with. On the other hand, since Tony hadn't been transported to the quantum realm, Mephisto couldn't possibly resurrect his daughter. Even trapped, Dr. Pym remained calm, coldly saying, "You're just as detestable as your father, Tony Stark. Did you think you were guaranteed to win?" Tony didn't mince words, retorting directly, "All I know is that you're trapped in a glass dome. And I'm outside, observing you like an ant." According to Tony's intelligence, Ant-Man wasn't particularly aggressive. And this specially made glass dome was impenetrable even to a suit. The unarmed, outdated Ant-Man's suit was even less likely to break. Clearly, Tony didn't know this. Pym particles, also known as unscientific particles, bug particles. And, suddenly, Dr. Pym grew larger. He returned to normal human size and continued to expand. Bang! Dr. Pym collided with a glass dome as he expanded. The next instant, the glass shattered, and Dr. Pym continued to expand, until he was about 14 times his original size. After destroying the glass, Dr. Pym quickly shrank back, using the smoke and dust as cover, and escaped through the opening. "What the fuck?" Tony couldn't help but curse. "Jarvis, quick, track his location." "Yes, sir." A moment later. "Sorry, sir, Dr. Pym has shaken off the pursuit." "Shit, he got away." "Sorry, sir, I wasn't talking about you, Jarvis." "Shit." Dr. Pym cursed under his breath as he escaped Stark Tower. He wasn't in good shape. Using Pym particles to grow to gigantic size and break the glass dome had taken a heavy toll on his body. What to do next? Dr. Pym was momentarily lost. Tony had already begun to be wary of him, and the strengths and weaknesses of his Ant-Man suit had been exposed to Tony. He only had one last card, which had already been discovered, shrinking to subatomic size for a desperate gamble. Afterwards, he might very well get lost in the quantum realm as well. Suddenly, Dr. Pym caught sight of a newspaper. The headline read, "The Stark family are frauds." Dr. Pym scoffed. He'd known this 20 years ago. The next few lines caught his eye. Aunt Vanko is the true inventor of the Orc reactor. Howard Stark merely stole Aunt Vanko's technology. Then, taking advantage of the Cold War, he despicably sidelined Aunt Vanko. Stark Industries should be called Vanko Industries, and Ivan Vanko should be Iron Man. It is reported that Ivan Vanko independently developed a miniature reactor in rudimentary conditions based on his father's manuscripts, surpassing even Tony Stark in genius. Unfortunately, this genius, seeking revenge, built weapons to attack Tony Stark and was imprisoned. He is currently detained. As a witness to this event, Dr. Pym knew the newspaper was exaggerating. But, if Ivan Vanko truly was a genius, what if I teamed up with him? Only by reaching gigantic size can the Pym particles unleash their full power. The human body cannot solve the problem of insufficient oxygen supply after gigantification, nor can it withstand the pressure of gigantification for extended periods. But machines can. Even though gigantic machines consume enormous amounts of energy, the arc reactor can supply it. My Pym particles plus Ivan Vanko's drone matches and the arc reactor can completely defeat Tony Stark, even Russell, head-on. Ivan Vanko, son of Aunt Vanko, do you still want revenge against Tony Stark? Thanks to Kyan Longsing Fang for the monthly ticket, and thanks to Bez Hang, Muagwe, and Master Chinsigio Xiao for the donations. Chapter 34. Hank and Ivan join forces. Russell and Guya devise a plan. Ivan Vanko, son of Aunt Vanko, do you still want revenge against Tony Stark? Dr. Pym's voice rang in Ivan Vanko's ears. Ivan Vanko was no ordinary prisoner. His crimes were insignificant compared to the benefits he held. The arc reactor and its miniaturization technology. If Ivan Vanko were willing to hand over these two technologies, or accept the olive branches extended by various forces and work for them, he would immediately go from prisoner to honored guest. There was only one person in this cell, and no loudspeaker. Where did the voice come from? Hearing Dr. Pym's voice, Ivan Vanko was slightly surprised. Then, without showing any emotion, he simply nodded casually. Dr. Pym's question was the reason he was still here. Various forces coveted him and his technology, but no one was willing to support him in taking revenge on Stark. Real revenge. We have a common goal, Tony Stark, Dr. Pym's voice continued. Unfortunately, none of us are his match. Ivan Vanko raised an eyebrow, his lips slightly parted, as if he wanted to say something. Then he closed his eyes again, his fists clenching involuntarily. My skills are no worse than his, it's his lack of sportsmanship. He tried to defeat me with sneak attacks and magic. But we can join forces, Ivan Vanko said softly, sitting down against the wall. What do you have? Pym particles. Dr. Pym's voice was filled with pride. What are those, and what are they used for? Ivan Vanko pressed. They can enlarge unmanned armor and weapons, Dr. Pym explained. Huh, then why don't I just build a huge one? Ivan Vanko scoffed. Build a huge one, how big? Dr. Pym asked himself. 5 meters, 20 meters, or 100 meters, then he continued, but what about the materials? What materials do you plan to use? Ivan Vanko fell silent. Armor isn't a sculpture, simply piled up stones to enlarge it. Making armor move and fight involves extremely complex disciplines, circuit design, motors, motion control. And for an armor tens or even hundreds of meters tall, materials are an unavoidable issue. Seeing Ivan Vanko fall silent, Dr. Pym smiled with satisfaction and continued, Pym particles can solve this problem. It's not simply about enlarging or shrinking objects, it involves many unknown and mysterious reactions. Can I see it? Ivan Vanko asked. He was already persuaded, but still wanted to confirm. Not here, Dr. Pym said meaningfully. You have to go out first. The implication was clear. If you want to see my Pym particles, you have to prove your abilities first. Your Pym particles had better be as amazing as you say, Ivan Vanko said ruthlessly, then got up and walked towards the cell door. Knock 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 Mr. Ivan Vanko, what is it? Soon, the guard's voice rang out outside the door. Tell Justin Hammer that I agreed to his conditions. In the mirror space, the Ancient One and Russell witnessed the entire process of Dr. Pym persuading Ivan Vanko. They even heard their inner thoughts clearly through telepathy. Russell stroked his chin. Pym particles plus armor mech. Russell once dreamed of owning a mech. He'd seen one in the Spider-Man Parallel Universe event, Penny Parker's Spider-Man robot. But that was too small. He hoped the mech Dr. Pym and Ivan Vanko would create would be 100 meters tall. Hairhead. Russell, the Ancient One called to him, waking him from his reverie, get ready to work. After using the Time Stone to peek into the past and learning that Mephisto's intention was to take Tony and Russell to the quantum realm, the Ancient One and Russell decided to play along. The Ancient One went to the quantum realm to select a battlefield and set up a magic array. Russell targeted Dr. Pym, inscribing a portal spell on his shrunken Pym particles. When the Pym particles were used, shrinking Tony to a subatomic level, the spell would trigger, teleporting Tony to a designated coordinate. Of course, all of this depended on one condition: Dr. Pym and Ivan Vanko had to defeat Tony. The two of them working together should be able to do it, right? While waiting for Justin Hammer, Dr. Pym dreamed of the future. Defeat Tony, send him to the quantum realm, and get his daughter back from Mephisto. Mephisto could resurrect Hope, so could he find Janet in the quantum realm? Could I use Russell to get Janet Russell back? Dr. Pym suddenly shuddered, shook his head, and snapped out of his daze. Soon after, a prisoner who looked, stood, and dressed exactly like Ivan Vanko was brought to the cell. Later, Ivan escaped and was taken away by Justin Hammer's men. A few days passed in a flash. Tony was very busy these days. Although Tony had solved the palladium poisoning problem and no longer urgently needed a new element as a raw material to power the arc reactor, SHIELD still returned the belongings of Tony's father, Howard Stark, to him. And Tony successfully discovered a new element within them, greatly improving the arc reactor's power efficiency. Then, the testing and deployment of the combat suits began. Meanwhile, in Queens, New York, at the Hammer Armory, Dr. Pym asked, how's the unmanned combat suit you're building using Justin Hammer's resources coming along? These past few days, he had frequently shrunk into Hammer's armory to inquire about Ivan Vanko's progress and to assist him in his research. Several days had passed, and he was eager to see his daughter. Very good, Ivan Vanko replied. I've gained control of the Hammer Industries combat suit. And the mech, combined with Pym's particle gigantification ability, is also ready. Hearing what Ivan Vanko said, Dr. Pym said urgently, then let's act now. Defeat Tony Stark, And send him to the quantum realm? Ivan Vanko shook his head. Defeating Tony Stark is easy, but how do we stop him from escaping? Escape? How can he escape? Dr. Pym asked, puzzled. Don't you know he knows a teleportation spell? With a spell, spatial jumps can be achieved, Ivan Vanko countered, continuing. If he didn't also know magic, I could defeat him without your help. Dr. Pym remained silent. This information wasn't in his intelligence. Ivan Vanko smiled dismissively. Don't rush. The opportunity will come tomorrow. Iron Man, aren't you supposed to protect everyone? So, will you choose to fight to the death or run away? There must be a way to stop Iron Man from escaping. It's just that, as an American, Dr. Pym wouldn't easily come up with such a method. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Mage Iron Man vs. Mech. Hammer Industries, a poor imitator of Stark Industries. Justin Hammer, a poor imitator of Tony Stark. At this moment, he was spouting nonsense in the Hammer Industries booth at the expo. Ladies and gentlemen, for too long our nation has sent brave warriors to risk their lives in battle. Then, Iron Man appeared. We thought we wouldn't lose our lives anymore. But then came the new faces of the US military, the Hammer Iron Soldiers. Amidst thunderous applause, rows of Iron Soldiers rose from the platform. Elsewhere, Ivan Vanko, head down playing on his phone, saw the footage transmitted through the Iron Soldiers. He looked up and handed the phone to Dr. Pym, smiling. Dr. Pym, the opportunity has arrived. Dr. Pym frowned. He didn't quite understand what Ivan Vanko meant by opportunity. He took the phone. The expo was now in ruins, and Iron Man was desperately trying to stop the Hammer Iron Soldiers. The footage showed Iron Man weaving and dodging among a group of Hammer Iron Soldiers. Occasionally, when he couldn't avoid being hit, an energy shield would appear on his body, easily deflecting the attack. Right hand, a mechanical energy cannon. Left hand, a small teleportation portal. Each strike precisely hit the energy reactor in the Iron Man's chest. I heard quite a few people went to this expo, Ivan Vanko said with a half-smile. Tell me, Tony Stark, is it to protect them, or to protect yourself? Ivan Vanko looked at the Whiplash armor. To defeat Tony Stark, those Iron Man suits alone won't be enough, it has to be you. As soon as he finished speaking, the Whiplash armor, originally 5 meters tall, rapidly expanded under the influence of Pym particles, reaching a height of approximately 120 meters. Let's go, Pym. Bang! A faint explosion came from Ivan Vanko's chest. Before he could finish speaking, Ivan Vanko clutched his chest, collapsed to the ground, and died, bleeding from all 7 orifices. Sorry, Ivan Vanko. I don't believe you'd let Tony Stark go when you had the chance to kill him. Dr. Pym glanced coldly at Ivan Vanko's corpse and headed towards the Whiplash Pym-X cockpit. He hadn't been visiting Ivan Vanko frequently lately for nothing. He was capable of piloting the mech alone. Boom. The Pym-Mech took off, accompanied by a deafening roar and a gust of wind, flying towards the expo. Here it comes. Russell, who was controlling the expo from a corner, looked up at the direction the mech was coming from, his eyes gleaming. 120 meters? It's decided then. After this battle, you'll be my mount. From now on, I'll call you the Russell Mech. With another wave of his hand, Russell saved another person. It wasn't that Russell was feigning compassion, letting the Hammer Steel soldiers wreak havoc while simultaneously saving lives. He could see into people's souls and distinguish between good and evil. Those who shouldn't die wouldn't die in his presence. Mephisto's arrival wouldn't have mattered, Russell said. Tony could testify. Although it's impossible to consider the issue of one's hero as another's enemy, Russell isn't American. Why would he care? Under his control, although the scene was reduced to ruins, the number of dead and injured was relatively small. Crack, accompanied by a sonic boom, the Pym suit punched Iron Man in the back, a sneak attack. If it were Ivan Vanko, faced with such a good opportunity, he might have unleashed several super-large missiles and energy cannons. But Dr. Pym was different. His goal wasn't to kill Tony directly. Boom, Iron Man crashed to the ground. Just as he was about to hit the ground, a portal to the sky opened. Tony reacted in time, buying himself time to absorb the impact. He didn't directly hit the ground, and the damage to his suit wasn't serious. Turning his head, Tony saw the massive suit and was momentarily stunned. Pym particles? Jarvis, scan the mechas in front of you. Locate the energy core or cockpit. Yes, sir. Facing the giant mech, Tony chose hit-and-run tactics. He focused on evasion and avoided direct confrontation. Inside the mech's cockpit, Dr. Pym was somewhat agitated. His mech's strength, speed, size, toughness, firepower, and energy output all surpassed Tony's suit. But Tony had a portal. And a highly proficient one at that. Several times, because he couldn't retract his power in time, Tony used the portal to slice off parts of his mech. Fortunately, the mech was large enough and had backup wiring, so it didn't affect its operation. Actually, Tony's portal did have a slight delay, which would reveal weaknesses in close combat. However, Dr. Pym's delay was even greater. After all, he was getting older, and his reaction speed had declined. In addition, Dr. Pym's proficiency and ruthlessness in piloting the mech were insufficient. At least, far inferior to Ivan Vanko. Ivan Vanko, piloting his mech, wouldn't be easily toyed with by Tony's portal. If Tony realized something was wrong and tried to escape through a portal, Ivan Vanko would definitely use the other survivors at the expo to threaten him. He'd throw a punch at the expo survivors and see what Tony would choose. After a long struggle, Tony found an opportunity and closed in on the Pym suit. He flew along the suit until he reached the cockpit. A portal, 2 people high and 1 person wide, opened. Tony pushed the portal, cutting open the cockpit and teleporting Dr. Pym into the air. Free fall chicken, enjoy your free fall, Tony cursed under his breath inside his suit. Dr. Pym, you've lost again. Give up. If you surrender, I can get you a good lawyer and try to get you a shorter sentence. With victory in hand, Tony began his sarcastic remarks. Oh, I forgot. You're too old, a shorter sentence won't get you out of here. Dr. Pym remained silent in the face of Tony's sarcasm. Even in dire straits, he wouldn't give up. At this moment, Tony was also feeling a bit of a headache. He didn't know how many Pym particles Dr. Pym had left, and dared not approach him to disarm. Dr. Pym, take off your suit and hand over all your Pym particles. Otherwise, Tony raised his hand, energy gathering in his palm. He locked onto Dr. Pym, who was periodically passing through the portal and free-falling, his killing intent palpable. Russell, watching from the sidelines, was somewhat annoyed. How was Dr. Pym controlling the mech? Did he even know how to play? Tony had won this. In Russell's plan, Tony would be defeated and captured. Dr. Pym would then teleport Tony to the quantum realm. He would then go to rescue him and fight Mephisto. However, after being ambushed and punched, Tony adopted hit-and-run tactics, gaining control of the situation. Seizing an opportunity, he broke into the cockpit and subdued Dr. Pym. Russell was in a difficult position. Dr. Pym made a series of blunders, falling into a disadvantageous position and retreating steadily. Dr. Pym had turned the tables. The Pym mech, its cockpit now dug out and out of control, stood rooted to the spot. He stealthily extended the muzzle of his gun and fired a specially designed bullet, a Pym particle. Just as the bullet was about to hit him, Tony reacted and tried to dodge. But in the next instant, the bullet accelerated. Chapter 36 Mephisto, the fish has taken the bait. The Pym particle bullet was secretly fired by Russell from his mech. Tony couldn't dodge it because Russell secretly accelerated the bullet. Having just backstabbed Tony, Russell felt a pang of conscience. It's all Dr. Pym's fault. If you'd been more efficient, I wouldn't have had to attack my teammate. Tony is my beloved friend, my brother. Mephisto, you'll have to pay for my conscience later. Quantum realm. Tony landed on a small island. He surveyed his surroundings. The ground was desolate, with only scattered rocks. In the sky, huge, colorful spherical objects floated, like stars. Overall, the space seemed incredibly bizarre and surreal. Just as Tony was stunned by this fantastical sight, a scarlet portal opened before him. Mephisto, dressed like an English gentleman, stepped out. Finally, we meet, Iron Man Tony Stark. With that, Mephisto removed his top hat and bowed to Tony. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mephisto. The world calls me, the King of Demons, the Lord of Hell, the supreme being of the demon realm, Mephisto. The one who wants my soul? Tony's face tightened, recalling his conversation with Russell a few days ago. It seems you've heard of me, Mr. Stark. Was it that sorcerer Russell who told you? Mephisto asked calmly. Neither Tony's strange expression beneath his suit nor his inner thoughts escaped his notice. You may have some misunderstandings about me. Yes, I do want your soul. But I will offer a price you cannot refuse. It will be a win-win deal. Telepathic ability, Tony questioned, simultaneously focusing his mind and using the shield of Seraphim to separate himself from Mephisto. Mephisto, unfazed by Tony's wariness, readily nodded in agreement. Yes, I can see into your soul and understand your inner desires. Mephisto continued, Tony Stark, do you want to know the truth about your parents' deaths? They were beaten to death. Tony's face turned ashen, and he retorted, weren't they killed in a car accident? He knew that Mephisto was likely telling the truth. For years, he had been kept in the dark. Mephisto didn't explain, but simply raised his hand, opening a virtual screen. On the screen were the souls of Howard Stark and Maria Stark. With a swipe, Howard and Maria's lives rewound. After practicing magic, Tony had mastered psychic powers, enhancing his perception. This enhanced perception had helped him many times in crucial moments. Now, it also helped him see every expression on his parents' faces when they died: pain, despair, helplessness. Tony's eyes turned bloodshot, and he was on the verge of madness. Mephisto seized the opportunity, tempting Tony, Tony, sign a contract and serve me, and I can resurrect your parents. Mephisto painted a tempting picture for Tony. In Mephisto's eyes, Tony possessed immense potential. Once that potential was realized, he could grow into a powerful force second only to him in the Hell dimension. Well, not that Tony couldn't surpass him in the future, but becoming stronger would be impolite. Tony was somewhat tempted, but he still remembered the teachings in the book, never sign any contract with the devil. Plus, your family and friends. For example, your butler Jarvis? And after they die, I can also guide them to my dimension to continue living, Mephisto added. The screen showed another soul. Tony suppressed his anger and regained his composure. On the surface, however, he appeared even more hesitant. He believed that the Ancient One and Russell would come to his rescue. Now, he had to use his acting skills to buy enough time. Time passed, and Mephisto grew impatient. He sensed someone spying on them. The sorcerer would arrive soon. His willingness to give Tony time to consider showed rare sincerity. He wanted to recruit help. After falling from his position as Satan, his power had diminished, and he desperately needed to replenish his forces. He wanted to use Tony to lure Russell, which was why he hadn't directly taken Tony back to hell. Ideally, he would entice Tony to sign a contract while trying to lure Russell. Right now, Tony was taking too long to consider, which didn't meet his expectations. Tony, don't agree to his request. A golden light appeared, and the portal slowly opened. Russell had arrived. Russell had deliberately been late. Tony wasn't in danger. In fact, he had unexpectedly held back Mephisto, giving the Ancient One time to complete the outer magic circle. Therefore, Russell naturally didn't need to rush to appear. His appearance now indicated that the Ancient One's magic circle was about to be completed. Firstly, Russell needed to create some commotion to cover his tracks. Secondly, to hold back Mephisto at a crucial moment, preventing him from escaping before the magic circle was fully formed. Upon seeing Russell arrive, Mephisto grinned maliciously. Mage Russell, we meet again. The fish had taken the bait. We meet again, Mephisto. The net was almost ready. Russell returned the smile. Boom. After the greeting, Mephisto didn't waste any more words, unleashing a beam of crimson energy towards Russell. Russell moved to Tony's side, the crimson energy following closely behind. In a fraction of a second, Russell considered whether to shield Tony in front of him. But he decided against it. Seraphim's shield. Russell raised his hands, summoning an energy shield to block Mephisto's attack. At the same time, he handed a vial of PIM particles to Tony. These are PIM particles with an amplified effect. Use them to escape the quantum realm. Tony took the PIM particles and used them without hesitation. After using the PIM particles, Tony's body rapidly recovered. Just then, Mephisto placed his hands in front of his chest, forming a loose fist, as if to grasp something. The next instant, the entire island was gripped by a pair of enormous energy hands. Tony's growth, colliding with these hands, hindered his recovery, causing him considerable pain. Russell leaped into the air, his hands clenched in a fist. The sacred sword of Vishanti, in hand, slashed at the energy hands. The sacred sword of Vishanti collided with the energy hands, producing a deafening roar. Both disintegrated almost simultaneously, scattering crimson and pale yellow energy. The fragments were like flames. The former transformed into hellfire, continuing to burn, the latter vanished like sparks in midair. Taking advantage of this moment, Tony rushed out and returned to the macrocosm of reality. Mephisto watched Tony's departing figure, his face grim. He had underestimated Russell. He hadn't expected Russell to break through his blockade with a single blow. However, this also demonstrated the immense value of Russell's soul. Although Russell displayed high magical skill, mages are fragile. As long as he could get close, he could win. Changing his strategy, Mephisto charged towards Russell. He intended to use his physical advantage to defeat the mage in close combat. Seeing Mephisto charging towards him, Russell panicked. He hurriedly used various spells to block him and retreated to create distance. Mephisto, as long as I get close, I win. Russell, if you get close and find that attacking me only makes you lose health, how am I supposed to continue this act? Chapter 37 Guyi, the web editor is done. The Quantum Realm. Mephisto and Russell put on a spectacular show. The program, you chase, I run, and if you catch me, I'll beat you up. The island where the group had been was now shattered into pieces by the aftershocks of their battle. Russell used the Aegon form, constantly creating clones and casting various spells to disrupt Mephisto's pursuit. It's worth noting that the Aegon form's effect on Russell was somewhat skewed. The clones didn't inherit Russell's physical attributes, their attributes were determined by the amount of energy used in the spells. Mage Russell, I wonder how long your energy can sustain your escape. Mephisto pressured Russell, constantly seeking opportunities to get close, while trying to persuade him. Why don't we sit down and discuss some terms? I can run with you all day. Russell naturally didn't believe Mephisto's words. Despite the talk of discussing things, Mephisto didn't seem to slow down. Suddenly, Mephisto slowed down and stopped. Sorcerer Russell, I think we can have a proper talk. With that, Mephisto pointed a finger at the sky. Countless crimson runes filled the sky. Underground, hellfire raged. During his pursuit of Russell, the energy emanating from Mephisto's attacks subtly spread throughout the surroundings. Ultimately, it formed a magic circle, summoning a hellish projection to descend and seal off the area. Russell stopped, he had nowhere to escape. Meanwhile, Tony, emerging from the quantum realm, returned to the expo site. As soon as he emerged, Tony opened a portal and left. He was going to Kamar-Taj to find the Ancient One. In his haste to leave, Tony didn't notice that a significant portion of the expo's ruins had already been cleared. News of his appearance and departure quickly reached SHIELD. To Tony's surprise, he wasn't immediately teleported into Kamar-Taj but was stopped outside. I am Tony. I have urgent business with the Sorcerer Supreme. Mordo stepped forward from the crowd, speaking through the protective barrier. Tony, go back. The Sorcerer Supreme isn't in Kamar-Taj. She's fighting a powerful magical being, Mephisto, Tony asked. I don't know, Mordo shook his head. The sorcerer didn't say. She only ordered us to be on full alert to guard against a magical dimensional invasion. Tony frowned. He had too little information. He couldn't tell if the Ancient One had gone to support Russell or was tied up with something else. When the Sorcerer Supreme returns, please tell her that Russell is fighting Mephisto in the quantum realm. The situation is urgent, remember not to delay. Russell is fighting Mephisto, someone among the sorcerers below exclaimed in surprise. They had heard of Tony and Russell, their privileges allowed them free access to Kamar-Taj to study. As for Russell, their junior brother, they had only met him a few times, yet he left a deep impression. He studied magic sporadically. For months, he hadn't been to Kamar-Taj many times. Yet, he was exceptionally powerful. They had discussed privately many times that when they saw their junior brother, they would persuade him to calm down and properly study magic. But every time they saw Russell, they forgot about it. Over time, everyone understood. Their mental strength was too different from Russell's, and they were unknowingly influenced. But, Russell fighting Mephisto? Really? That was the Lord of Hell, who is a force to be reckoned with in the multiverse. Ignoring the commotion of the mages below, Tony opened a portal and headed to SHIELD headquarters. He could only search around to see if he could get reinforcements. As soon as the portal opened, it immediately alerted SHIELD agents, their guns pointed at the portal. Seeing Iron Man emerge, the agents relaxed slightly, but no one lowered their weapons. Put down your guns. Coulson, who had come out after hearing the commotion, saw the scene and quickly ordered the agents to disarm. Tony, what brings you here? You didn't even let us know. Coulson subtly expressed his displeasure at Tony's unannounced arrival at SHIELD headquarters. Coulson, I'm sorry, But I have more important matters to attend to, Tony apologized and then got straight to the point. I'd like to know how much SHIELD knows about Mephisto. Mephisto, the devil from Faust, Coulson asked, puzzled. He didn't understand why both Tony and Dr. Pym had mentioned this mythological figure. Mephisto isn't just a mythological figure. He truly exists. He is the Lord of the Hell Dimension, Tony explained. Does SHIELD have any information on this? I don't know, but the classified information I'm authorized to access doesn't include anything related to Mephisto. Coulson shook his head first, then continued, however, I've heard that name frequently mentioned by Dr. Pym these past few days. Dr. Pym? A few days? Tony asked, surprised. Jarvis, check the date, sir. New York time, June 4, 2011. 4 days had already passed? Tony was incredulous. In his memory, he had spent no more than an hour in the quantum realm. Take me to Dr. Pym, Tony said to Coulson, a glint in his eyes. The flow of time in the real world is different from that in the quantum realm. In the real world, there's more time to prepare. I can assemble a team to support Russell. Tony decisively abandoned Russell and left the quantum realm, not out of cowardice, but because he wanted to seek help. This was a misunderstanding caused by information asymmetry. Of course, it wasn't that Russell and the Ancient One were deliberately keeping it from Tony. Secrets are made, and leaks are exposed. When facing Mephisto, it would be difficult for Tony to maintain his composure and not reveal the secret. Sorcerer Russell, you have nowhere to run. Let's talk some terms, Russell. The magic circle is set up, we can close the net. Mephisto and the Ancient One's voices reached Russell's ears one after the other. Russell, with an upright expression, said righteously, I never negotiate with evil forces. How? Mephisto chuckled and snapped his fingers. Crimson runes flashed in the sky, and countless energy chains descended, shooting towards Russell. Despite several attempts to dodge, Russell was still bound by his limbs and torso. Mephisto strolled through the void, approaching Russell. Sorcerer Russell, whether you talk or not is not up to you. Today, this contract, you sign it if you want, and you sign it if you don't. Russell suddenly grinned, revealing his teeth. Is that so? I don't think so. His innate energy absorption activated, and the chains binding Russell quickly dimmed and then dissipated. Russell clenched his right fist, gathering divine power within it. He threw a punch, slamming it into the unsuspecting Mephisto's face. Bang! 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 Mephisto was sent flying. 3 explosions echoed through the air. When dealing with evil spirits, there's no need for chivalry. Ancient One, let's fight side by side. Chapter 38 Mephisto, let's negotiate. Mephisto's head glowed with crimson energy, healing his injuries, and his distorted face gradually returned to normal. He was somewhat stunned. You're a mage, how can you be so powerful in melee? If you're so powerful in melee, why did you run away just now? Crack. 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 Centered on Mephisto, the surrounding space twisted and shattered in concentric circles. Mirror spaces layered upon each other, completely surrounding Mephisto. Further away, runes bearing the symbol of Camartage appeared. 3 enormous magic circles, distributed in 3 different directions, were about to connect. At that moment, the heavens and earth would be sealed, and Mephisto would have nowhere to escape. Just like Russell before. Coming to his senses, Mephisto flew rapidly towards the gap in the magic circle. Now, he realized he had been ambushed. The Ancient One waved her folding fan. Suddenly, space in front of Mephisto distorted, causing his flight direction to deviate. Russell seized the opportunity, arriving first and intercepting Mephisto. Old Mephisto, weren't you going to fight me in close combat? Seeing the plan going smoothly and the situation looking promising, Russell couldn't help but tease Mephisto. Come on, let's meet in a death match. Mephisto roared and charged at Russell, completely desperate. He was gambling. Gambling that Russell would let him pass. As a noble dimensional lord, he only used avatars when he was active outside. The death of an important avatar was certainly a serious injury, but it wasn't death. But these 2 mages were his true form. They were seriously injured and could die. Facing Mephisto's charge, Russell grinned and charged forward as well. You probably don't know what an invincible body is. Boom. Russell didn't dodge or avoid. Energy absorption was running at full power, and he directly collided with Mephisto. In unison, the 2 of them concentrated their energy into their bodies and chose to fight in close combat. Although each punch and kick contained the power to tear apart mountains and shatter the void, The power was concentrated and did not leak out, and the energy dissipated after the collision was absorbed by Russell. For a moment, the commotion was far less than the energy clashes during the previous chase. In slow motion, it even resembled a street fight, with Mephisto having a slight advantage. He parried many of Russell's attacks, while his attacks almost always hit Russell. But soon, Mephisto realized something was wrong. His punches and kicks struck Russell as if they had vanished into thin air, causing no harm whatsoever. Even when he parried Russell's attacks, the energy consumption was extremely high. And when he was hit, the damage was not only immense, but it also drained his energy, leaving him somewhat weakened. He understood. It wasn't that his close combat skills were better than Russell's, but rather that Russell had absolutely no need to dodge or block his attacks. Without breaking his defenses, there was no way to break them. To attack him was tantamount to attacking himself. Mephisto saw it. During the fight, Russell actually smiled at him. This was utterly outrageous. Russell's face tightened. Damn it, he'd accidentally laughed. Mephisto's punches and kicks landed on Russell, and the term massage would be quite apt upon contact. Most of the kinetic energy from Mephisto's punches and kicks was absorbed. Then, hellish energy invaded Russell's divine body. But like a clay ox entering the sea, it was completely absorbed by Russell's energy-absorbing talent. In just a few moments of exchange, nearly 100,000 units of energy were absorbed. Equivalent to 13 days of livering, scratch that, sleeping, in a star. How could Russell not laugh? Mephisto unleashed an energy burst, trying to force Russell back. But Russell remained unmoved, even using the opportunity to absorb Mephisto's energy. Seeing this, Mephisto silently retreated, increasing the distance between himself and Russell. Nearby was Russell, his clothes torn, looking disheveled, but actually unharmed. In the distance, a bald female mage, lightly waving a folding fan, exuding an imposing aura. Around her were seemingly endless, distorted, flowing mirror spaces. On the horizon, 3 interconnected, colossal magic arrays encompassing heaven and earth. Mephisto knew that his clone was likely doomed. At the SHIELD space carrier, Tony addressed the group. Russell is battling Mephisto in the quantum realm. We need to support him, Dr. Banner, standing nearby, asked. But how do we enter the quantum realm and find them? Tony explained. We can use PIM particles. Finally, we can go to where I left off and then follow the battle trail to find them. After hearing Tony's explanation, the Avengers murmured amongst themselves. Entering an unknown, entirely new realm to fight a mythical enemy? Gradually, the discussion subsided, and the Avengers turned their attention to Nick Fury, who had spearheaded the formation of the Avengers. Yes, the Avengers had been formed. Since Dr. Pym revealed his intention to assassinate the Avengers, candidates, SHIELD agents had urgently contacted Dr. Banner. A few days earlier, after Dr. Pym was captured, Dr. Banner was also brought back to SHIELD. During this process, SHIELD made some exchanges with the military and agreed to some of Dr. Banner's requests. Ultimately, Dr. Banner became the 4th Avenger. The other 3 were Hawkeye Clinton Francis Barton, Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, and Blade Eric Brooks, who joined SHIELD after the Blood God incident. Nick Fury frowned. This newly formed Avengers team was capable of handling natural disasters and supernatural events on Earth. Mephisto, the Lord of Hell? Wasn't that a huge leap, starting with high-level situations right after its formation? But if they refused Tony's request for help, it would mean that SHIELD was admitting it couldn't handle major events and could only manage minor ones. If morale collapsed, the team would be difficult to lead. Moreover, it would be impossible to recruit Russell and Tony into the Avengers in the future. This might actually be an opportunity. Nick Fury confirmed with Tony again. The Sorcerer Supreme has left Kamartaj, his whereabouts unknown, presumably to support Russell. Yes, Tony nodded. This was his speculation. If the Sorcerer Supreme and Russell are defeated, Earth will be in danger. Having made up his mind, Nick Fury decided, Avengers, assemble. At the same time, he reached for his pager. If this operation fails, I might have to call you, old friend. I just wonder how much sense of belonging you still have for Earth. Seeing Mephisto realize he had nowhere to escape and stop in place, Russell and the Ancient One exchanged a smile and stopped attacking. They hadn't forgotten their initial goal, to set up a trap and extract energy. At this moment, trapping Mephisto's clone wasn't to kill him, but to make a deal, blackmail. The death of an important clone would be a heavy loss for Mephisto. But for Russell and the Ancient One, there was no gain. A mutually destructive scheme wasn't worth Russell and the Ancient One's long planning. Mephisto, let's negotiate. Thank you to Wu Iao is the realm of hope, Sister Hui, Storyteller Azan, and the generous donations. Chapter 39 Ancient One, should we silence her? Mephisto, let's negotiate. The Ancient One also has a contract she'd like to sign with you. Russell stepped aside, wary of Mephisto's escape, leaving the negotiations to the Ancient One. Professional matters should be left to professionals. Russell had previously visited the Ancient One's secret stash. Those clusters of energies of varying natures couldn't possibly have been slowly accumulated by the Ancient One from the multiverse over the years, could they? Negotiation? How do you intend to negotiate? Mephisto asked. The Ancient One lightly rested her folding fan on her hand, smiling as she spoke. Of course, we'll discuss how former Supreme Lord Mephisto of the Demon Realm will compensate Kamartaj and redeem this avatar of yours. A flash of annoyance crossed Mephisto's eyes. Reaching the pinnacle of the Demon Realm as Satan was his proudest achievement. His recent fall from Satan's position was his most painful experience. This event severely damaged his strength and influence, leaving him even weaker than before his ascension. The Ancient One's words, mentioning Satan and Kamartaj, were undoubtedly an attempt to intimidate him. Mephisto calmed his anger and said, "It seems the Ancient One is quite concerned about the affairs of my demon realm." The Ancient One smiled but didn't reply, only gesturing for Mephisto to continue. Seeing that the Ancient One didn't respond, Mephisto was secretly troubled. He wanted to test how much the Ancient One knew about him in order to decide how much to pay to get back this avatar, but he hadn't expected the Ancient One to remain silent. After thinking for a moment, Mephisto asked, "What compensation does the Ancient One require?" The Ancient One held up one finger. "First, you bewitched Dr. Pym, attacked my disciple Tony Stark at Kamartaj, and attempted to lure him into the demon realm using the souls of his family. You need to compensate me for the souls of my disciple Tony Stark's parents and butler." Agreed. Mephisto readily agreed. This condition would cost him almost nothing. The Ancient One held up a second finger. "Second, you attacked the next Sorcerer Supreme of Kamartaj, severely injuring him." As she spoke, the Ancient One gave Russell a wink. Russell coughed a few times, his breath rapidly fading, his body swaying precariously, his face turning pale. Mephisto's lips twitched, pretending not to notice. The Ancient One continued, "He needs a large amount of magical energy to recover from his injuries." Mephisto breathed a slight sigh of relief. Magical energy was scarce in the physical world, but it was relatively abundant in the magical dimensions. How much? The Ancient One condensed a ball of energy, indicating that it was a unit. 10 billion, impossible. You've gone too far. We'll fight to the death, Mephisto roared. 10 billion units of energy wouldn't be a crippling blow to hell. But hell was hell, and the Lord of Hell was the Lord of Hell. Hell wasn't just his own. Moreover, it was best for him to cover such a large compensation himself. If word got out, it would damage his reputation, further destabilizing the already troubled region and shaking his rule. Oh, fight to the death. Mephisto, are you going to leave hell in your true form to rescue your clone? With that, the Ancient One waved her hand, opening a portal. On the other side of the door stood another Ancient One, the Whitebird Ancient One. Mephisto's eyes narrowed the moment he saw the Whitebird Ancient One. This man's aura was only slightly weaker than his own when he reached the pinnacle of Satan. And now, outside hell, he could easily defeat him. Are you threatening me? Mephisto's face darkened. He had never intended for his main body to leave hell to rescue his clone. His main body risking his life to save his clone? What was the point of having a clone then? Clones were meant to shield the main body from danger. The bald Ancient One's deliberate display of power was meant to tell Mephisto, if you refuse my demands, your main body in hell will also be in danger. This clone of mine isn't worth that much energy. Swallowing his anger, Mephisto chose to bargain. The bald Ancient One smiled. Mephisto, we're discussing compensation now, we'll redeem your clone later. Huff, huff, huff. Mephisto's breathing grew increasingly heavy. He now wished he could self-destruct his clone, severing all connection and avoiding the sight of it all. Ancient One, that's not how you set a price. Mephisto, I know you can afford it. The bald Ancient One had done some research recently, and this figure was probably about 80% of Mephisto's personal treasury. Ancient One, if you don't want to talk, let's meet in hell, Mephisto said ruthlessly. He had it, but he wouldn't hand it over. I think it's better if both sides compromise to avoid a lose-lose situation. At this moment, the white-bearded Ancient One stepped forward and played the good cop. 2 billion, the compensation for the Russell sorcerer, this matter is settled. As for the redemption of the clone, that's waived. Mephisto's expression softened. Redeeming the clone for 2 billion energy was definitely a loss. But avoiding being attacked by 3 powerful sorcerers, especially one of them who was unorthodox and whose magic was vaguely at another level, was a way to avoid trouble. Mephisto and the bald Ancient One exchanged a glance, both understanding each other. Okay, everyone, are you ready? At SHIELD, Tony and the 4 Avengers donned their special suits and teleportation bracelets. They nodded solemnly. With a major battle imminent, no one had time for frivolity. This opponent was extremely formidable, and the mission was incredibly difficult. They hoped the Avengers would return safely. Nick Fury sighed inwardly and waved, "Let's go." The Avengers team pressed their bracelets simultaneously, instantly shrinking and disappearing from their original positions. The Avengers traversed bizarre and fantastical landscapes, landing in a void. They quickly activated their suits' flight functions, stabilizing themselves. The island Tony had mentioned earlier had vanished, leaving only countless rubble. Some of the rubble, stained with hellfire, was burning fiercely. In the sky, a projection of hell was visible, with demons dancing wildly. In the distance, several enormous crimson pillars of light descended from the sky, connecting heaven and earth. "They're over there. Looks like the battle isn't over yet," Tony said, attempting to open a portal. Unexpectedly, the portal failed to open. Tony was puzzled, but could only suppress his doubts and lead the team towards the crimson pillar of light. A moment later, Tony and his group finally arrived at the location of the crimson pillar. What they saw was 4 people sitting around a table, seemingly playing mahjong. Russell was all smiles, making no attempt to hide it. The bald Ancient One maintained her usual smiling expression, though her slightly narrowed eyes revealed her excellent mood. The white-bearded Ancient One was rather boisterous, seemingly having lost quite a bit at the mahjong table, and Mephisto, dressed like an English gentleman, had a bitter face, casually drawing and playing cards, seemingly just there to make up the numbers. "Ancient One, our deal with Mephisto has been discovered. Should we silence him? Thank you to the 108,000 Dream Boy for the reward." Please continue reading. Chapter 40 Mephisto's Dark Agent. "Ancient One, our deal with Mephisto has been exposed. Should we silence them?" Russell asked the bald Ancient One with a grave expression. Bang! The white-bearded Ancient One yelled, slamming his hand on the table, knocking over everyone's tiles. "6-way hand every time. How are we supposed to play? Silence them. We must silence them." The Avengers, the already tense 4 Avengers, immediately went on high alert. In a reaction, Hulk immediately took Bruce Banner's place. Roar! Hulk, fearless, Hulk charged at the white-bearded Ancient One, about to unleash a powerful blow. The white-bearded Ancient One didn't get up, remaining seated. He grinned as Hulk approached. Bang! The white-bearded Ancient One's body blurred, dodging the attack. Banner slapped the unsuspecting Russell on the head. "The white-bearded Ancient One, you kept winning at mahjong, and you even boasted about being a mahjong master." A muffled thud followed. Russell remained motionless, only his chair shifting slightly. A flicker of confusion crossed Hulk's eyes. This was the first time he'd encountered someone who had withstood his attack unscathed. His fingers clenched, ready to grab Russell's shoulder for an over-the-shoulder throw. Russell rolled his eyes at the white-bearded Ancient One. At his age, still acting like a child, a sore loser. "Calm down, Hulk. Try to control yourself, Dr. Banner." Russell's voice carried a mental power, calming Hulk. Russell raised his hand, intending to fix his hair, which Hulk had messed up. His hand hovered in mid-air before he remembered he had a buzz cut, and he casually touched his hair. The next second, his hair grew wildly, forming a middle part. Hawkeye and Blade, is this the sorcerer Russell? He withstood a punch from Hulk without flinching, like nothing happened. Natasha, is this what a sorcerer is? He can customize his hairstyle at will. Tony ignored the two goofing around and asked directly, "What's going on?" The white-bearded Ancient One swept his hand away, putting away the mahjong tiles. Afterwards, the old man calmly sat down to the side. The bald Ancient One then flicked his hand, and a tea set appeared. He then quietly brewed tea for himself. Seeing that neither of the two Ancient Ones wanted to explain, Russell had to do it himself. He paused for a moment, thinking about how to phrase it in a more righteous way. After, not, friendly communication, Mephisto realized his mistake and was offered to compensate me for medical expenses, work injury expenses, mental distress compensation, and compensation for damage to my conscience. Tony couldn't help but retort, compensation for damage to conscience? What's that? It's because I ambushed him, he said halfway through, realizing he had let something slip. Russell quickly changed the subject. Your compensation has also been paid. Look. As he spoke, he flipped his hand, and the souls of Tony's parents and butler floated above him. Tony's pupils contracted sharply, and he slowly reached out to take the 3 souls, protecting them with his mental power. They can be resurrected. It requires constant maintenance with magic to awaken their souls. Tony, you should know what happens when an ordinary person's soul is exposed to magical energy for a long time. Russell interrupted Tony, reminding him. Even seasoned sorcerers must be extremely careful when drawing energy from the multiverse. A single misstep can lead to being corrupted by magic and having their minds twisted. I can use the power of the Vishanti, Tony countered Russell, but his voice trailed off. The Vishanti provided the sorcerers of Kamartaj with their energy for cultivation and combat almost free of charge, hoping they would use this power to protect the real universe from the corruption of magical dimensions, not to forcibly sustain the lives of their loved ones. Helping in times of crisis, not in times of need. Even gods follow this principle. Tony, you can send their souls to the dimension where the Vishanti reside. It doesn't violate any rules, the bald ancient one suggested, unable to bear seeing her disciple in such a predicament. Under the influence of white magic, they will gradually recover. After you die, you can reunite with them. It sounded similar to Mephisto's condition, the difference being that white magic wouldn't twist the mind, while the magic of the hell dimension would. Tony remained silent for a long time, then slowly nodded. At this moment, Natasha asked, are the souls of those who die in our world all in hell? Unsurprisingly, yes, Russell nodded, indicating certainty. Natasha hesitated for a moment, then asked, Sorcerer Russell, can you help us retrieve Hope's soul? Dr. Pym's daughter, Hope Van Dyne, Why? Russell asked directly. He knew about Dr. Pym's deal with Mephisto, but what did it have to do with him? He wasn't the one who tricked Dr. Pym into signing the contract. Natasha explained, Dr. Pym suspects that SHIELD deliberately harmed his daughter. And during our investigation, we discovered that Hope's mission back then was indeed shady. We suspect that a mysterious force is lurking within SHIELD, and we hope to communicate with Hope. Russell rubbed his temples, feeling a bit of a headache. He wasn't interested in the conflict between Hydra and SHIELD, but the Avengers had risked their lives to enter the quantum realm to support him, and he couldn't remain silent. Although the Avengers had truly been useless this time. Russell's gaze fell on Mephisto. Mephisto's lips twitched. He had figured it out. He had been tricked by these 3 mages. Moreover, he had made a fatal mistake, the skylight effect. They first deliberately pretended to attack the hell dimension if he didn't compromise, raising his own sense of crisis. Then, one of them deliberately played the good cop, getting both sides to back down, giving him the psychological suggestion of paying to avoid further trouble. Finally, they even feigned generosity by waiving the compensation for redeeming his clone. In fact, from beginning to end, they only had one bargaining chip, this clone. Unfortunately, by the time he realized it, he had incurred many sunk costs. But did they really think he didn't know that sunk costs don't participate in decision-making? Mephisto pretended to be conflicted and took out Hope's soul, planting a seed first. Handing Hope's soul to Natasha, Russell reminded him, does SHIELD have a way to nurture souls? If not, it's better to let her soul return to hell to slumber. Natasha just stared at Russell expectantly. Russell, I just made a fortune, I won't hold it against you. Russell extracted a wisp of energy from his attribute point pool and poured it into Hope's soul. Attribute points -0.1. If it's just in spirit form, it can last for a month. Once it enters the physical body, it's hard to say. Thank you, Mage Russell. Natasha thanked him, carefully put away Hope's soul, and retreated. By the way, Tony. How did you get in? How much time has passed outside? This place was specially chosen by the Ancient One, and the time flow is not much different from the outside world. Russell and the Ancient One did not want to encounter that kind of unlucky situation. 5 hours in the quantum realm is 5 years outside. Thanks to book friends 201811270904455522, Aisha Chengsi, book friends 2020121555257628, and Yu Hifengao Yu-Gig for their monthly tickets. Chapter 41 Russell the Ancient One, Time to Divide the Loot. Tony briefly explained how to use PIM particles to enter and exit the quantum realm, combining it with portal magic and advanced technology to create a positioning bracelet, before leaving. On one hand, exposure to PIM particles would cause both psychological and physiological stress. On the other hand, the matter of supporting Russell was concluded. But other things were just beginning. Tony hadn't forgotten the person who killed his parents. Natasha also needed to bring Hope's soul back to SHIELD and cooperate with Nick Fury to uncover the forces hidden within SHIELD. The group came and went in a hurry. The Ancient One also took the opportunity to say goodbye. In the previous game, Mephisto had been conceding defeat. While he was genuinely bad, he didn't want to stay. Russell and the bald Ancient One stayed behind to detain Mephisto until the energy delivery was complete. Another hour passed, the energy delivery was complete, and Mephisto left without a word, his face grim. Only the crimson energy pool, resembling a vast ocean, and Russell and the Ancient One, standing before it in a daze, remained. Their eyes gleamed differently, but both revealed joy. As the panel upgraded, Russell's perception of energy flow became increasingly acute, and his physical and mental thirst for energy grew stronger. Russell was the first to ask, "Sorcerer, are we rich? How do we divide it this time?" The white-bearded Ancient One didn't seem to need the hell energy much, so she didn't participate in the division. The Ancient One smiled, absorbed the ball of about 100,000 units of hell energy, opened a portal, and placed it inside. On the other side of the portal were hundreds of energy balls of roughly the same size. Was this another little treasure trove of the Ancient One? Or a collection room? "The rest is all yours, all for me," Russell exclaimed. "Yes," the Ancient One nodded. "The energy I've extracted, scammed, from the multiverse is enough for my needs. More energy won't improve me. However, you're different, Russell. You haven't reached your limit yet." The Ancient One and her companions had already reached their limits. Energy was like fuel for them, material for casting spells. As long as it was enough, it wouldn't affect their strength. But for Russell, energy was food. Every unit he consumed increased his strength. Russell had only used 3 million units of energy to reach his current strength, not considering talent. This was incomprehensible to the Ancient One. Only the bald Ancient One knew how efficient Russell was at absorbing and processing energy. Even the other Ancient One didn't know. "Thank you very much, Sorcerer." After hearing the Ancient One's explanation, Russell didn't refuse out of politeness. They were both Sorcerer Supreme, practically family. Moreover, these 2 billion units of energy would indeed be extremely beneficial to Russell. It would allow him to take off again in a few months when his panel upgrade was complete. "However, Sorcerer, can I leave the energy with you for now and retrieve it later?" Most magical energy would affect a person's mind, even distorting it. During the panel upgrade, the energy couldn't be purified to eliminate this effect. Russell would have to withstand it himself. With Russell's current mental attribute values, withstanding tens of millions wouldn't be a problem, but 2 billion? He might return to the depressed state he was in a few months ago. The Ancient One pondered for a moment, seemingly remembering something, and nodded, "All right. But this means we'll have to stay here a little longer." "A little longer is fine," Russell said nonchalantly. Time in the quantum realm was relatively close to the real world. A few more days would be enough. Surely no one would be looking for him in a few days? With that, the Ancient One and Russell each opened and maintained their portals, channeling energy into the Ancient One's small vault in Kamartaj. Emerging from the quantum realm, New York was even hotter. June had arrived. Of course, this had nothing to do with Russell. In his second stage, he could absorb light and heat energy, becoming a human-shaped, self-contained air conditioner. Back in the bookstore, seeing a figure quietly reading at the counter, Russell remembered something. The increased heat in New York was irrelevant to him, but the arrival of June was. Schools in America started their summer vacation in June. Approaching and sitting beside Gwen, Russell asked in a low voice, "Gwen, what brings you here?" "Summer vacation." Gwen gave Russell a strange look. "Russell, are you mixing up the timelines of the two Earths? I still have over a month until summer vacation. It's the weekend, and I asked the Ancient One, Whitebird, to bring me here, Russell slapped his forehead. "Oh right, that's strange. How could I get that mixed up?" "Russell, is everything done?" "Yes, tell me, does hell really exist?" The two sat side by side, and Russell quietly recounted the story to Gwen. Regarding Mephisto, Russell hadn't told Gwen the specific plans before starting the operation. A few days ago, the Ancient One, Whitebird, returned to Earth 65 and told Gwen that things were settled. Gwen then wanted to learn the whole story from Russell, and about hell. She also had relatives in hell, her mother, Helen Stacy. Russell embellished the events slightly and told Gwen the story. For example, he could have tricked Tony, causing him to fall into the quantum realm. Or, Tony could have stumbled and been killed by Dr. Pym. It was Russell who arrived just in time to rescue Tony from the powerful and evil Mephisto. As for being chased by Mephisto for throwing the fight, that's completely fabricated. Russell, don't throw fights. From beginning to end, it's all about beating Mephisto. Before he knew it, the story was nearing its end. And there was an extra listener nearby, but Russell didn't seem to care. "Long time no see, Russell, long time no see, Calson." It really had been a long time. Since the Blood God's Descent incident, SHIELD hadn't bothered Russell, which greatly surprised him. But that was fine, less trouble, more good. SHIELD was sensible, and Russell was happy to be at ease. Calson said in his usual gentle tone, "Russell, do you mind if I relay that story back to SHIELD? "Of course not. If you did mind, you wouldn't be hearing it anyway." Calson smiled at Russell, expressing goodwill. "Russell, what's your assessment of SHIELD's role in these kinds of supernatural events?" Russell remained silent. Regardless of his answer, good or bad, SHIELD would seize the opportunity and invite him to join the Avengers. Calson was also puzzled by Russell's aloof attitude towards SHIELD. If Russell was prejudiced against SHIELD, why did he cooperate with their operations? If Russell had a favorable impression of SHIELD, why did he always resolutely refuse recruitment? "Russell, do you have some misunderstanding about SHIELD? Russell pondered for a long time. Considering SHIELD's efforts in the Rescue Russell incident, he said in Chinese, "A dragon doesn't dwell with a snake." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 I Am the Real Spider-Man, the Sorcerer. Dragons don't dwell with snakes. Hearing this, Calson was first taken aback, then his face darkened. He suddenly seemed to remember something, his expression becoming uncertain. Finally, Calson gave Russell a deep look and asked, "Russell, are you rejecting SHIELD, or a reminder to SHIELD both?" Russell nodded, then added, "Calson, the Khmer-Taj sorcerer's duty is to protect the world from magical invasion. We generally don't interfere with the workings of the real world." The implication was clear. SHIELD and Hydra's affairs are your own business, don't come to me. Of course, I'll intervene when I want to. Generally non-interference equals whether I intervene depends on my mood. Okay, Russell, to get information about the Dr. Pym Mephisto incident from Russell as soon as possible, Calson had been staying at Russell's bookstore for the past few days. Now it seemed worthwhile. Calson left with a grave expression. He needed to report the news immediately, Russell's battle with Mephisto, and Russell's implication that Hydra members were infiltrated with an SHIELD. Russell's hints, Dr. Pym's testimony, Hope's ambush during the mission, or Howard's death. Has Hydra really been resurrected with an SHIELD? Inside SHIELD, Nick Fury frowned deeply. Everyone he saw now seemed like a Hydra agent. Who can be trusted? His gaze slowly moved, finally settling on a file titled Avengers. After a moment of silence, Gwen asked a question with a somewhat somber expression, "Is Helen also in hell?" Russell shook his head, then explained, "There are many dimensions of hell. Helen isn't in the dimension ruled by Mephisto. Or rather, the dimension of hell corresponding to Earth 65 isn't Mephisto's." Gwen's eyes brightened slightly. "That means Helen's soul is in another hell. Then, can we go to the dimension of hell, Earth 65, and rescue Helen's soul?" Russell nodded. "As long as we find the coordinates, it's certainly possible." What to do after rescuing Helen's soul, Russell didn't tell Gwen. Tony had no choice. But he had a plan. Just then, Eileen, having finished her homework and packed up her textbooks, was about to leave when she saw Russell at the counter. "Russell, it's been a while since I've seen you at the bookstore. What have you been up to lately?" "Adult stuff, kids shouldn't pry," Russell replied dismissively. What he'd been doing these past few days was clearly not something suitable to tell Eileen. Making up an excuse would be too much trouble. HMPH, Eileen snorted unhappily. "Don't think I don't know," she lowered her voice. "Russell, you're a sorcerer too, right? Have you been saving the world lately?" Russell shook his head. He was plotting against Mephisto, not saving the world. There was no need to embellish his reputation. "Boring," Eileen muttered. Ever since she'd accidentally learned that Gwen was the ghost Spider-Man, she was convinced that Russell was the masked man from that day, and that he had a close relationship with the bald sorcerer who appeared later. Moreover, the mysterious situation at the bookstore had already spread throughout the neighborhood. "By the way, Aaron, let me ask you a question," Russell wanted to test the girl. "Sorcerer or Spider-Man, which do you prefer? If I remember correctly, you dressed up as a sorcerer last Halloween. Spider-Man rescued Aaron from a vampire, and the Ancient One removed Aaron's vampire weakness. Both were Aaron's favorite superheroes." Aaron smiled slyly. She had thought this through over the past 6 months. She wanted them both. "I like Sorcerer Spider-Man, swish." Russell felt a gaze fall on his face. Russell coughed a few times and asked, "A sorcerer is a sorcerer, and Spider-Man is Spider-Man. How can you connect the two?" "Why not?" Aaron retorted, then glanced at the sky. "All right, that's enough. I have to go. Goodbye Russell, goodbye Gwen, goodbye Aaron, X2. After exchanging greetings, Aaron slung her backpack over her shoulder and hurried away. There was an unusual bulge in his backpack, whether from a tennis racket or something else, it was hard to tell. "I like Spider-Man," the wizard Gwen's chilling voice rang in Russell's ear. Along with it, a small hand climbed onto Russell's waist. Grabbing it, she gave it a sharp twist. "Ouch!" Russell gasped in unison, his expression contorting slightly in pain. "All right, stop acting, you drama queen." Gwen released his hand, grumbling at Russell, but her eyes softened. Russell chuckled twice, his exaggerated expression vanishing. "Pain? Not at all." After their playful banter, Russell asked Aaron, "Gwen, has Aaron been acting strange lately? The wear on the soles of her shoes is odd, not like normal wear from walking." Gwen thought carefully, calculating the time difference between the two universes, and then suggested, "I'm not sure, but it probably started a few days ago. Why don't we follow her tonight and check it out?" "Okay." Aaron Smith is now more or less a super soldier, and if not properly guided, she could cause considerable damage. This is not what Russell and Gwen want to see. Night fell, and following Angel City, the Big Apple also welcomed the Wizard Spider-Man and Ghost Spider-Man duo. Russell and Gwen found a high spot and watched Aaron from afar. She was wearing a bodysuit similar to Ghost Spider-Man's, and holding a staff-like object. Although it looked incongruous, she was indeed Wizard Spider-Man. After some leaping and bounding, Aaron landed on a rooftop. On the rooftop, Daredevil Matt Murdock had been waiting for a long time. "Eileen, becoming a hero requires bearing a lot. Are you ready?" Matt was waiting there to train Eileen. He asked this question before every training session. A few days ago, when he sought Russell's help as Daredevil, he happened to encounter Eileen, who is now Spider-Man, fighting evil. If Eileen were an adult, he wouldn't have interfered. But he clearly heard that Eileen was only about 16 years old. Her values were not yet fully formed, and she lacked awareness of the wickedness of bad people. After several attempts to persuade her failed, he decided to stop Eileen under the guise of training. "I'm ready," Eileen said seriously. Becoming Spider-Man wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, it was the result of more than half a year of thought. She had been through the rain, so she wanted to hold an umbrella for others. Like Gwen, Russell, that mysterious bald sorcerer, and Daredevil before her. Russell and Gwen, watching this scene from afar, exchanged a glance, both feeling a mixture of relief and worry. He was relieved that Aaron hadn't gone astray because of her sudden superhuman powers. He worried that she might get hurt or even die while doing good deeds. However, Russell stroked his chin. "I am the Sorcerer Spider-Man." Chapter 43 Russell Pager. Having confirmed that Eileen hadn't gone astray and that she had only trained with Daredevil, Russell stopped paying attention. Tonight, he and Gwen would thoroughly clean up the security situation in the Big Apple. A powerful mental aura emanated, and in an instant, Russell sensed every movement in New York. He then filtered out some personal information. Did Kamartaj sorcerers generally not interfere with the workings of the real world? With his robes off, he became known as Mr. Russell, the ordinary citizen and the boyfriend of the ghost Spider-Man, a good neighbor to the citizens of New York. Gwen, let's go. The night once hailed as the descent of God in the City of Angels was relived. Chapter 28. Those who harbored malicious intentions but hesitated suddenly repented and laid down their weapons. Those without prior convictions went home to reflect, while those with convictions voluntarily surrendered to the police. Those burdened with sin and beyond redemption, the moment they made a move, were bound by a spiderweb, awaiting police arrival. Those currently committing crimes suddenly experienced a blackout and fainted. Some awoke to find themselves at the police station. Many more never woke up again. For Russell, it was just one night with Gwen. It directly or indirectly changed the fates of countless people. Thump thump thump, a series of hurried footsteps followed by urgent knocking on the door. Nick Fury, come in. Director Fury, we've detected energy fluctuations in New York similar to those in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago. A moment of silence fell over the room. Waving his hand, Nick Fury dismissed the extra. Continue monitoring, don't worry about it for now. Inside the room, besides Nick Fury, was Coulson reporting to him. The phone call had only been brief. Nick Fury and Coulson exchanged glances. This was why he ranked Russell as the first in the Avengers, even above Tony. With a single thought, Russell could perceive every movement in New York, preventing unintended crimes and stopping ongoing illegal activities. Conversely, with a single thought, he could also wipe out all life in New York. Sigh, Nick Fury sighed, giving instructions to Coulson. Make arrangements to cover up the news for him. Coulson, what about the higher-ups? Nick Fury, use the same excuse as last time. These people can't be allowed to contact Russell. He didn't want those politicians to come into contact with Russell. The power of mortals couldn't restrain a powerful superhuman. On the contrary, if these people angered Russell, it could have extremely negative consequences. Nick Fury had harbored resentment towards Carol for leaving Earth to become a space police officer. It wasn't until Russell appeared and gradually demonstrated his abilities that he realized this. For such a completely superhuman to use his power cautiously was already a mercy to mortals. After scanning New York with his mental energy, Russell frowned slightly. Sure enough, out of sight, out of mind. Seeing too much human suffering affected his mood. Sweeping away these negative emotions, Russell focused on playing a game of punishing evil with Gwen using map-based cheat codes. What did Russell see? A drug factory full of deaf-mute people. Such criminal groups, with their intertwined interests, wouldn't be easy to eradicate completely. Russell didn't want to destroy this organization only to have another member reappear a few days later, claiming to have left and taken over operations. This wasn't his main job. He didn't have time for such games. He needed someone to investigate thoroughly, then leverage official power to wipe them out completely. You're the one, he thought, Daredevil Matt Murdock. If he remembered correctly, Matt would be going up against the Hand in a few years. And coincidentally, Matt was also looking for Russell. Ring ring. Russell's phone rang. It was Matt calling. A closer look revealed several missed calls. Good evening, Matt. Good evening, Russell. Matt, I have something I'd like to ask you for help with. Russell, what a coincidence. I also have something I'd like to ask you for help with. Matt, shall we arrange a time and place to talk? No need. Let's talk now. A portal opened in front of Russell, and he pulled Gwen along, stepping out to find himself on the rooftop where Matt was. Wow, Eileen exclaimed in surprise upon seeing how Russell and Gwen appeared. She knew Russell was also a mage. But he seemed different from what she had imagined mages to be. She had originally thought mages rode broomsticks and wielded staves in battle, throwing medium, large, and super large fireballs. She hadn't expected it to be a portal that easily traversed two places. Hearing the noise, Matt turned to face Russell, his face filled with confusion. Why were there suddenly two extra breathing sounds? Russell waved his phone. Matt, let's talk now, Russell. Matt was surprised and uncertain. The voice and scent of the person in front of him were very similar to the Russell he remembered. However, the restrained yet terrifyingly dangerous aura made him hesitant to recognize him. Sensing the doubt in Matt's tone, Russell teased, What? Haven't seen you for months. Can't you recognize me? Matt calmed himself and slowly explained, No, I just can't believe it. Your current aura frightens me, even terrifies me. Oh, Russell raised an eyebrow. Matt, your perception is very strong. And quite special. An ordinary person couldn't sense danger without Russell actively releasing malice. After a brief exchange, Russell got straight to the point. Tell me first, what do you want? Matt fell silent, deep in thought. Russell's combat strength exceeded his expectations. The plan could be slightly altered. Seeing Matt remain silent for a long time, Russell suggested, how about I go first? Matt, okay, I want you to help me investigate a criminal organization in Hell's Kitchen, The Hand. As soon as Russell finished speaking, Matt looked up at him, surprised. Russell raised an eyebrow. You're asking me to do this too, aren't you? Matt nodded excitedly. Their goals were aligned once again, just like when they worked together to take down Kingpin. It was just a pity that they later disagreed. Let me tell you my thoughts first. Having confirmed that they shared the same goal, Russell didn't stand on ceremony. I found a drug processing plant belonging to The Hand and collected the evidence. You're responsible for contacting the police and taking down this hideout. And try to follow the trail to uncover as many other members of The Hand as possible, as well as the protectors. Matt nodded. He knew Russell didn't like dealing with officials, and his identity wasn't suitable. Like before, should I contact you before the operation? No, it's different now. Russell reached out, energy coalesced, and a pager appeared. You're going solo this time. If you're in danger, just press this pager. No matter where you are, I'll be there in a second. I've become a god. Becoming a god was a joke Russell and Matt had made before. Russell. Send me the money, and I'll carry you after I become a god. Matt, he'd never seen a god, but Russell's power was unparalleled. He'd only asked Russell for help hoping for another powerful ally. But now, he'd actually summon a god? Can I ask for tomorrow's update in advance? Also, can I ask for monthly votes? Cute JPG. Chapter 44 Odin's Invitation. This pager was made by Russell, imitating the spider totem he gave Gwen. It utilizes quantum mechanics. Once pressed, Russell can sense it, know the coordinates, and open a portal to provide support. However, unlike the split spider totem, which is passive and triggers only when danger is sensed, this one is actively triggered. In other words, if the pager's holder is instantly killed before pressing it, Russell will have no way of knowing, let alone providing assistance. How does this work? Can you really get there just by pressing it? Eileen asked curiously. The little girl was undoubtedly a good mouthpiece, asking Matt's question. Russell's speed of support was crucial to his safety and couldn't be taken lightly. Russell smiled slightly, not directly answering Eileen's question, but saying, Eileen, it's so late, shouldn't you go home? As he finished speaking, sparks flickered in front of him, and a portal leading to Eileen's bedroom slowly formed. Wow, Eileen exclaimed again. Russell, can you teach me? Want to learn? Russell asked. Yes, Eileen nodded vigorously. No teaching, go back to sleep. Russell refused, laughing heartily at Eileen's instantly crumbling face. Learning Kamartaj magic meant becoming a Kamartaj person, having to contend with the magical dimension's invasion of reality. It was dangerous. Eileen had a happy family, there was no need for her to join Kamartaj. Kamartaj mages were mostly orphans or solitary individuals. The former included Russell and Mordo, the latter included Tony, and the future Stephen Strange. Eileen, you should go back now. Today's training is over. Matt nodded thoughtfully, also urging Eileen to go back first. Although he couldn't see it, he could sense that Russell had just opened a door to another dimension. With this ability, Russell could indeed support him at any time. Russell, you said you became a god. How did that happen? Matt asked curiously. Hearing Matt's words, Eileen stopped her reluctant steps, wanting to hear more about these extraordinary experiences. The literal meaning, Russell said calmly. The attribute panel rated him as a god, which meant he had become a god. Eileen pouted, dissatisfied with the answer. Russell glanced at Eileen and snapped his fingers. The portal moved quickly, teleporting Eileen, who was standing there preparing to continue eavesdropping, back to her room. Matt remained silent, feeling that Russell's words actually had a deeper meaning. Literally, it meant that Russell could basically do everything that gods could do. This time, he had truly asked a god for help. Russell, send me back to. You know the address, Matt said, wanting to experience the feeling of a portal as well. Snap, with a snap of his fingers, a portal appeared in front of Matt. Matt walked straight in. Although he couldn't see, The smell on the other side of the portal was completely different from the environment here. For Matt, finding his way was naturally no problem. Before the portal closed, Matt thoughtfully looked back at Russell. He saw Russell smile at him, and he smiled back. Matt and Russell's conflict stemmed from how to deal with Kingpin. Matt believed in legal judgment. Russell, on the other hand, thought he should be killed outright. Matt knew that, in this matter alone, Russell might be right. But if someone ignores the rules, the dragon-slaying hero becomes the new dragon. Now he understood that Russell had always followed the rules. It was just that they followed different rules. Gwen, who hadn't spoken until now, asked curiously, "Russell, is there some story between you and Matt?" "My story with Matt? That's a long story." Russell gently embraced Gwen, and the space shifted, bringing them to an unnamed sky. He gestured for Gwen to sit on a cloud, watching the sunset. Russell slowly began to tell the story of him and Daredevil Matt Murdock. Midway through the story, a consciousness came to listen in. The Ancient One? She also likes to listen to stories? Not surprising, several times when I visited her, she was watching movies. Asgard. A continent floating in the depths of space. Odin, the king of the gods. A king nearing his end. The protective barrier of Midgard has been opened, the Sorcerer Supreme has returned. Send the invitation to her, inviting her to Thor's coronation, Odin ordered his guards. Yes, also, summon Thor, I have something to instruct him in Loki. Have the brothers come together, Odin instructed another guard after a moment's thought. Yes, Odin's twilight was approaching, his divine body could no longer withstand his ever-growing power. It was time for him to consider his final affairs. He had only one eldest daughter, neither of his two sons were suitable heirs. His eldest daughter, Hela, the goddess of death, was intelligent and brave, but her desire for conquest was too strong. Asgard, though vast, would perish if it loved war. This was a lesson Odin had learned during his conquest of the Nine Realms. After conquering the Nine Realms, Hela was sealed away by Odin for her rebellion and the massacre of the Valkyries who were leading the army to quell the rebellion. Thousands of years of imprisonment had long since extinguished any remaining affection Hela had for her father. Thor, the eldest son, was brave and skilled in battle, enjoying high prestige in Asgard, with almost everyone supporting his succession. However, he also had some problems. He was impulsive, lacked critical thinking, and was easily deceived. Moreover, although Thor had experienced countless battles, the intensity of suppressing rebellions was ultimately less than that of conquering. Once he returned to Valhalla and Hela was freed, Thor would likely be no match for her. He would only surpass Hela when he truly became the king of Asgard and the power of Odin awakened and grew stronger within him. As for Loki, the second son, he was an adopted son of Laufey, the frost giant king, so it was best not to mention him. Sigh, Odin sighed deeply. He suddenly had a feeling that Asgard was doomed. He hoped that the forces allied with Asgard would lend a hand, or at least not take advantage of their misfortune. Nepal, Kamartaj. The Ancient One received the Asgardian envoy and received an invitation. Thor Odinson's coronation? Is the power of the Asgardian king about to be transferred? The Ancient One muttered to herself. Asgard is the nominal ruler of the Nine Realms, protecting them from external threats. The change of the Asgardian king is undoubtedly a major event for the Nine Realms. Earth, or Midgard, is also one of the Nine Realms. Take Russell with me. He'll be the Sorcerer Supreme after he becomes king, and he'll inevitably have to deal with the Asgardian king. As she pondered, the Ancient One telepathically connected with Russell's location. At that moment, Russell was telling Gwen his story with Matt. Sensing the Ancient One's arrival, he made no reaction. Is this young man trying to reform the workplace, even extending to Kamartaj? He doesn't even greet his teacher. Chapter 45 Mage, are you going to die? As the sun dipped below the horizon, the story drew to a close. Russell glossed over the disagreement with Matt. Afterward, he returned to his bedroom on the 7th floor of the bookstore to prepare for sleep. Gwen had to go to work at 10 the next morning, so he needed to rest early. Although Gwen spent most of her time studying on Earth-65, she hadn't quit her job at the bookstore and had been receiving Russell's salary for the past few months. She could manage during the week, but she couldn't skip work on holidays. Sensing the Ancient One's presence following him, Russell asked curiously, "Hey, Sorceress, why haven't you left yet?" "The story's finished, Ancient One." "Oh, did I say I came to listen to a story?" "Russell, I need to talk to you about something." The Ancient One's voice echoed in Russell's mind, and she thoughtfully opened a portal for him, leading directly to Kamartaj. Seeing that Gwen was still awake, Russell decided to take her with him. The air quality and scenery in Kamartaj were better than in New York. Sleeping there would ensure a better sleep. Russell, Master, Gwen, Ancient One. After exchanging greetings with the Ancient One, Russell led Gwen to his residence in Kamartaj to rest. A cool breeze carried the fragrant scent of wormwood and mugwort, refreshing and invigorating. This was the essence of nature. Looking at the scenery along the way, Gwen asked curiously, "Russell, do you usually train here?" Russell nodded with a smile. "That's right, my current strength is entirely the result of diligent training. As for attribute points and talent, can that be called cheating?" After settling Gwen in, Russell went to find the Ancient One. "Sorcerer, what brings you here?" "I thought you were here to listen to my story." The Ancient One stated directly why she wanted to see Russell. "Odin, the God King, sent me an invitation to Thor Odinson's coronation ceremony, and I'd like to take you with me." Russell nodded. "Then let's go together." "I also want to see the splendor of Asgard." The Ancient One nodded. "All right, then we'll go together in 3 days." Sorcerer. "Couldn't you have just sent me a message about this?" Russell asked, sensing that things weren't so simple. The Ancient One explained, "Over the years, Asgard and Kamartaj have maintained a fairly good relationship, and I have also developed a certain acquaintance with Odin. Odin's health is failing, and he's about to return to Valhalla. My mission is also nearing completion. To continue the friendly relations between Asgard and Kamartaj, I intend to introduce you to Thor." "Sorcerer, are you going to die?" Russell exclaimed. If the Ancient One died, he would have to take over the position of Sorcerer Supreme. Although he was powerful enough to avoid any mishaps, he wouldn't be as carefree as he was now. The Ancient One shook her head. "Russo, you know. For an being like me, the demise of the physical body isn't death. On the contrary, the physical body has become a shackle on my cultivation." The Ancient One sighed somewhat. A few days ago, when they were besieging Mephisto, she discovered that the other Ancient One's cultivation was far ahead of hers. Russell nodded heavily. He couldn't stop the Ancient One's cultivation. He needed to find a way to improve the strength of his subordinates, that would reduce his worries. Seeing that Russell had processed the news, the Ancient One continued. "I have a feeling this trip to Asgard won't go smoothly. During Thor's coronation, someone might cause trouble in secret, and you might need to intervene." That's not a problem," Russell replied, then asked, "Should we make a small commotion or a big one?" "A big commotion. Odin knows the power of Kamartaj, but the other Asgardians might not. Appropriately displaying our strength will be beneficial for future cooperation." After answering Russell, the Ancient One thought for a moment and added, "Also, during this time, you'll stay in Kamartaj and get to know the other sorcerers better." Thanks to the bonus ability of his talent, ability Absorption, Russell was extremely sensitive to energy. He could understand and replicate most spells at a glance, even without learning the principles or incantations. For Russell, imitation was infinitely more cost-effective than learning. This was also why Russell rarely went to Kamartaj to learn. He had stolen all the spells of the Kamartaj sorcerers. They just didn't show it at Kamartaj, afraid of hurting their feelings. SHIELD, Helicarrier. Nick Fury, Coulson, Hill, and the Avengers were all gathered. Tony was also there. Persuaded by his father Howard's spirit, he had agreed to join the Avengers and become a special advisor to SHIELD. After emerging from the quantum realm, Tony chose to nurture the souls of his loved ones with his mental energy, intending to send them to Vishanti after they awoke and he had finished catching up with them. "Russell isn't here?" Tony asked, sipping his coffee. Due to excessive mental exertion, Tony had been recuperating in his mansion for the past few days. He had only heard that Russell had emerged from the quantum realm yesterday, but hadn't inquired further. Nick Fury and Coulson exchanged a glance, their expressions somewhat awkward. "Russell refused to join the Avengers, then we could have let him attend this meeting." Tony wasn't surprised by Russell's refusal. "Could it be some confidential information that can't be shared?" "No, not at all," Nick Fury explained. "He came back yesterday and stayed at the bookstore for a while, then caused some trouble in New York last night, and then disappeared." "We can't get in touch with him?" Natasha asked curiously. "Can't get through on the phone? In this day and age, does anyone go out without a cell phone?" Coulson said helplessly. "His phone is a regular phone, not a satellite phone, so there's no signal." Hearing this, everyone was speechless. but the meeting proceeded as scheduled. This meeting was to review the Dr. Pym Mephisto incident, but the most important key figure, Russell, was absent. Therefore, information about Mephisto, and how Russell confronted Mephisto and escaped unscathed, even inflicting a major loss on Mephisto, couldn't be fully reconstructed, even with Callson's retelling of Russell's story. They only knew that Mephisto seemed to be limited in some way when acting in the real universe, only able to act in the quantum realm or other dimensions outside the real universe. However, the information about Mephisto was scarce. But based on Dr. Pym and combining information from various sources, they reached a shocking conclusion. Hydra has been resurrected with an SHIELD. Hope's attack during the mission was orchestrated by someone with an SHIELD who leaked the information. And the car accident involving Tony's parents was likely also orchestrated by this group. Who then covered it up, Callson concluded. And the person who personally carried it out was very likely him, the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. Chapter 46 Russell's Vision, the Sorcerer Supreme. Kamar Taj, Nepal. As the sun rose, the mages rose early to practice their spells. For mages, advancing from apprentice to master requires diligent study day after day, year after year. But recently, the mages had been somewhat distracted during their spell practice. Good heavens! Russell had spent 2 days straight studying spells at Kamar Taj. Usually, he would only stay for a short while before leaving. But how could he know all the spells, and be so proficient at them? In the courtyard where the mages practiced, Russell paced back and forth. He wasn't causing trouble, Russell wasn't that bored. He was now, Grand Master Russell, the head instructor of the Kamar Taj mages. Relax your hands when casting a portal. Just go through the motions, focus your attention on where you want to go. As he walked, Russell offered pointers from time to time, occasionally demonstrating himself. When casting the Red Ring of Ragador, a small defensive shield, pay attention to the flow of energy. Don't worry too much about whether the movements are standard, just do whatever feels comfortable. Inside the hall, Mordo, watching Russell instruct the other sorcerers, couldn't help but complain to the Ancient One, "Ancient One, are you just letting Russell do whatever he wants?" Yes, in Mordo's view, Russell's teaching was indeed haphazard. What Russell said is certainly correct, but it's not suitable for novice sorcerers. For novice sorcerers, the coordination of incantations and movements is very important. Standard movements help them concentrate, guide energy, and release spells. The Ancient One didn't refute Mordo's words, nor did she stop Russell. She simply smiled and nodded gently. Mr. Mordo, you're right. Russell's method is indeed not suitable for most people. Don't worry, he'll realize this soon. Then, he'll change his teaching method himself. Inside the courtyard, Russell had stopped and was deep in thought. Why couldn't they teach them? Russell, Gwen woke Russell from his reverie. Can I learn magic? She'd skipped work for the past 2 days, spending her time in Kamar Taj watching the sorcerers practice. The various magical spells had broadened her horizons and piqued her curiosity. Gwen often interacted with Russell and the Ancient One, so her perspective was quite broad. The spells the Kamar Taj sorcerers practiced were just child's play. Gwen, do you want to learn? I'll teach you. Russell's eyes lit up. Gwen, Spider-Man, was a hero unit. The other sorcerers, who didn't even deserve names, were just lowly units. Hero units generally had better attributes than lowly units. I'm sure Gwen can prove it's not that I'm a bad teacher, Russell said, casually taking a sling ring from the shelf and handing it to Gwen. He explained, mastering the use of sling rings is crucial in magic. They can open portals, allowing you to travel freely to different places, even different universes. After Gwen put on the ring, Russell began demonstrating, reminding her, concentrate. As you draw circles, visualize your destination in your mind. Gwen watched Russell demonstrate a portal, nodding thoughtfully. Soon, she began practicing using the sling ring, trying to draw a portal. Her finger traced a circle. Another circle. Yet another. Just as Russell was about to give up, wondering if his teaching abilities were truly lacking, a spark appeared, quickly connecting to form a circle. The circle expanded. It worked. The portal was complete. Russell almost jumped for joy, his smile undisguised. Gwen, however, lowered her head in thought, showing little excitement. Strange, Gwen muttered. Why is there no response when I want to return to George's house, Earth 65, but I can return to the bookstore instantly? Teleportation within the universe is different from teleportation between universes. At this moment, the Ancient One walked over and explained briefly. As for the difference, she didn't elaborate. It was during the sorcerer's morning practice, and with so many people around, it was best not to reveal the method of traversing the multiverse. If Gwen wanted to know, Russell could tell her privately. Then, the Ancient One praised Gwen. "Gwen, it seems you have a great talent for learning magic." Russell raised an eyebrow slightly. What did that mean? Couldn't it be because I taught her well? Gwen smiled and replied, "Thank you for the compliment, Ancient One. By the way, Ancient One, will it have any impact if Russell teaches me magic?" The Ancient One shook her head. "It's fine, Gwen. Russell is the future Sorcerer Supreme, he has the right. However, if you are interested in magic, you can ask another Ancient One for guidance after returning to Earth 65. Russell's face stiffened. Although the Ancient One's words were tactful, he still understood the implication. "Sorcerer, you said I am the future Sorcerer Supreme and have the right to teach magic, which I appreciate, but I'm very unhappy that you told Gwen not to learn from me and to go find the Ancient One. Gwen, I'll take you to learn the language and script of magic." Ignoring Russell's protests, the Ancient One led Gwen away, explaining as she went. Her voice carried from afar, as if speaking to Russell as well. This language of mysterious magic has existed since the dawn of civilization. Long ago, the Sorcerer Supreme called this language incantations. Sorcerers draw energy from other dimensions of the multiverse and collect it. They chant incantations, paying the energy, to cast spells. Except for certain individuals, others who don't learn to read and don't study cannot learn magic. They cannot chant incantations and cast spells. Russell's forehead creased. Books? What books? Incantations? What incantations? Isn't the essence of magic simply the manipulation of energy? Just observe the energy flow and replicate it, right? Russell stood there, lost in thought. Could it be that my method of casting spells is different from others? If the Ancient One were here, she could answer Russell. Yes, Russell's method of casting spells was different from other sorcerers. Other sorcerers paid a price, usually energy, in exchange for the right to use spells, essentially renting them out. The spell owner could choose whether to lend or not, and at what price. Russell, however, copied, using energy to imitate and replicate the spells himself. He owned the spells. Anyway, in the magical world, no one would accuse him of plagiarism. If that's the case, then this is troublesome. He had originally wanted to teach them properly, to see if he could train a few Sorcerers Supreme. That way, if the Ancient One ran away, he could take over and subcontract the missions. But how could he teach someone with a different method of casting? No. He hadn't chosen the right students. Russell suddenly realized, to build the Sorcerer Supreme Order, choosing the right people was even more important. His Sorcerer Supreme Order is about to undergo a slight change in its candidate pool. Thanks for the monthly votes for when comments can be posted. Chapter 47 Wanda, candidate of the Sorcerer Supreme Order. In Russell's vision, there were 3 candidates for the Sorcerer Supreme, ranked in order: Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange, Tony Stark, Iron Man, and Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff. Russell initially thought that with his keen perception of energy flow and his talent for almost instantly mastering any magic, guiding the 3 to become powerful sorcerers would be a piece of cake. However, reality proved otherwise. Due to the differences in their spellcasting methods, his teaching abilities might be slightly less than anticipated. Furthermore, stimulated by the Ancient One's white beard on Earth 616 and Russell's rapid growth, the bald Ancient One had already considered retiring. She wanted to retire, relinquish the responsibility of the Sorcerer Supreme, and focus on her own cultivation. This would lower Stephen's ranking. Russell had neither the patience to wait for him nor the ability to teach him or catalyze his growth. As for Tony, the combination of magic and his suit was a path he had to forge himself. Russell couldn't offer much help in the short term. Unless, of course, he was willing to be Tony's tool and guinea pig, conducting experiments for him. Wanda's rank has risen to first. She was born a potential witch, capable of casting spells unconsciously even as a child. If we find the Mind Stone, use it to awaken the chaos magic latent within her, and then guide her to master it, a powerful sorceress will be born. It's incredibly efficient and convenient. But the Mind Stone, should it be with Thanos now? The universe is so vast, where am I supposed to find it? If we can't find the Mind Stone, we'll find Wanda first. We'll bring her back to Kamar Taj to learn, so she can master chaos magic more quickly when she awakens it. If I remember correctly, in the movie version, Wanda's parents were Oleg Maximov and Irina Maximov, and she had a twin brother, Pietro Maximov. When they were young, their neighbors were attacked by local rebels using Stark Industries weapons, and Wanda's family was caught in the crossfire. Her parents died. Because a Stark Industries missile failed to explode, Wanda and her brother survived, but they became orphans and wandered from place to place. Later, the twins joined Hydra. So she should still be in Sokovia, right? I wonder if she's joined Hydra yet. Sorcerer, I'm going out for a bit. Call me when it's time for Thor's coronation. After saying goodbye to the Ancient One, Russell opened a portal, took a step, and disappeared. Hey, Russell's gone. Let's check the time. How long did he stay this time? From noon yesterday to 10 this morning, 22 hours, a record. In the jungle, a portal opened, and Russell emerged. Sokovia, a small, landlocked country in Eastern Europe, is mountainous, barren, and turbulent. After World War II, Hydra members hid within its borders, establishing secret bases. While recalling news of Sokovia, Russell released his mental energy, enveloping the small country. Where there's a secret base, it's most likely Hydra's. If Wanda has joined Hydra, then he'll take her and her brother, Quicksilver Pietro Maximov, with him. If Wanda hadn't joined Hydra yet, Russell could only search the area around Sokovia. If he still couldn't find her, he'd have to ask Tony for help. Tony still owed him a life-saving favor. Just when Russell had prepared several backup plans, things unexpectedly went smoothly. Russell scanned a spot with his mental energy and suddenly felt something sting him. The movement was extremely subtle. If he weren't focused, Russell might not have noticed. But Russell was currently searching for someone, so his attention was naturally very focused. Found her, Russell looked over. At this moment, Wanda and Pietro hadn't joined Hydra yet. On the contrary, they were being chased by Hydra members. I don't like the hero saves the damsel in distress trope. With a sigh, Russell still decided to take action. Although he didn't like the hero saves the damsel in distress trope, he had to admit that the atmosphere was right. Wanda, quick, this way. Pietro saw a small path where no one seemed to be blocking their way and quickly pulled Wanda towards it. Hydra's target wasn't Pietro and Wanda, but the entire town. They were running out of experimental subjects. Crossing a narrow path and scaling a wall, Wanda and Pietro successfully escaped the town. All they had to do was hide in the forest ahead. Halt! Just as the siblings were rejoicing at their impending escape, a shout shattered their illusions. The voice didn't come from behind the town, but from ahead. They were right in front of the enemy's main force. Wanda and Pietro instinctively huddled together, warily looking ahead. From the jungle, a squad of fully armed soldiers slowly emerged. Seemingly hearing the commotion, another squad of soldiers from the town behind them also moved closer. Hands behind your head, crouch down, the shout rang out again. The harsh, brutal voice carried a force that Wanda and Pietro couldn't resist. The most primal force. Just as Wanda and Pietro were filled with despair and about to give up and comply, a soft laugh rang out. The sound wasn't loud, but everyone present heard it clearly, as if it were right next to their ears. A tall, rapidly spinning portal, shimmering with golden sparks, opened before Wanda. Russell, dressed in robes and wearing a hood, slowly stepped out. Fire! With a sharp shout, gunshots rang out. Rat-a-tat-tat. Muzzles spat fire as bullets shot out at supersonic speeds, invisible to the naked eye. But Wanda and Pietro saw it clearly. The bullets slowed down mid-air, finally freezing in mid-air. Russell slowly raised his right hand, snapping his fingers, and waited until everyone's attention was focused. Snap! With a snap, the earth churned violently, like a dragon turning over, engulfing and burying the Hydra soldiers. Then, calm returned, as if nothing had happened. Wanda and Pietro stared blankly at the unfamiliar mage before them. Their desperate situation had been resolved in the blink of an eye by the mage. They just didn't understand. Why did this strange sorcerer suddenly appear and save them? Want to learn? Russell's voice rang out, filled with unfathomable mystery. Wanda and Pietro exchanged glances, their voices hesitant and uncertain. Yes. Can we learn? Want to learn? I'll teach you, Russell said calmly. The next second, the mirror space expanded, enveloping the three of them. Whoosh! Like a spaceship suddenly starting up, it carried the three of them rapidly beyond the universe, allowing them to travel through the multiverse, observing the infinite dimensions and countless wonders. Russell couldn't help Wanda much with her magical training, but he knew how to ignite Wanda's interest and desire to learn magic. These two things were the best teachers. Therefore, Russell equals the best teacher. Thanks to reader 20220327230005106 for the monthly ticket. Chapter 48 The Apostle of Sithin turns to the Vishanti. As the self-proclaimed best teacher, Russell glanced discreetly at his two disciples who hadn't yet formally become his students. Seeing them completely stunned, a smug glint flashed in his eyes. Very well, it seems I'm not only the best teacher, but also the best director. From Pietro discovering the path and Wanda escaping the town, surrounded by Hydra soldiers, to that untimely shout of fire, everything was under Russell's control. Although he wasn't a fan of the hero saves the damsel in distress trope, it was undoubtedly the fastest way to establish the image of a mysterious and powerful sorcerer in that situation. Emerging from the multiverse's super vortex, this journey exploring the multiverse temporarily came to an end. The twins' screams finally caught up with him. Whether startled by their own voice or overwhelmed by the wonders of the multiverse, the siblings, unable to regain their footing, collapsed to the ground, unable to rise for a long time. A moment. A long time. Wanda and Pietro snapped out of their daze, looked at Russell, and said in unison, "Master, teach us, follow me." Russell, hands behind his back, turned and led the way, taking a step forward. A rotating circle of fire appeared out of thin air before them. The circle expanded, forming a portal. Wanda and Pietro rose and followed closely behind. Behind the portal lay Kamartaj. Russell walked ahead, leading Wanda and Pietro, explaining as they went. This was Kamartaj, Kathmandu, Nepal. Passing through courtyards and corridors, Russell led the siblings to an antique-style hall. Inside, several monks sat or stood, some reading, some drinking tea. A male and female monk stepped forward and draped coats over the shivering siblings. Kamartaj is located in the Himalayas, at the foot of Mount Everest, where the temperature is quite cold. "Thank you," the siblings whispered. After putting on their coats, they were no longer so cold, but they still couldn't help but huddle together. They were probably still a little shy, being new to Kamartaj. Seeing this, Russell comforted them, "Don't be afraid. The sorcerers here are all good people, and they speak very kindly. You'll like it here, the brother and sister responded softly, but still didn't raise their heads. Russell assumed they were just too cold and handed them 2 teacups. The two accepted them listlessly. The Ancient One followed closely behind, pouring them a cup of tea. "Have some tea to warm yourselves up." While pouring the tea, the Ancient One, when the brother and sister weren't looking, carefully examined them. When she saw Wanda, the Ancient One's expression changed slightly. But she remained expressionless, only giving Russell a look, as if asking, "Why did you bring her back?" Wanda was born with chaos magic, and the source of chaos magic is the ancient god Cynthian. Cynthian, also known as the god of the underworld, the god of chaos, and the god of darkness, is the source of dark magic. The Vishanti are the source of white magic. As the name suggests, Sithin and the Vishanti are opposing sides. From a standpoint of principle, Wanda and Kamartaj could never be on the same side. Russell gave the Ancient One a reassuring look. "I know what I'm doing." It's Sithin's embarrassment that his apostle joined Kamartaj. But Russell has brought honor to the Vishanti, their founder. When Sithin comes knocking, shouldn't they at least show some respect? Even if they don't, Russell isn't afraid. At most, he can't defeat Sithin. Losing is impossible. Invincible body, as the name suggests, means never losing. At most, after a fight, he'll be depressed for a few months, and then his stats will be upgraded. Perhaps it was genuine coldness, or perhaps he finally found something to do, something less awkward. Wanda and the Pietro siblings were busy drinking tea, one cup after another. "Ancient One, I would like to recommend Pietro Maximov and Wanda Maximov to Kamartaj. They were orphaned at a young age and suffered greatly growing up, but the two siblings have supported each other and never lost their kind hearts." The two siblings, hearing Russell recount their past and recalling their hardships, couldn't help but tear up. But as Russell praised them profusely, their faces flushed, and they became somewhat embarrassed. Sigh. The Ancient One also sighed deeply. "I am truly a kind person. I cannot bear to see human suffering. In that case, Pietro, Wanda, would you like to stay in Kamartaj? Wanda and Pietro exchanged a glance and said in unison, "Ancient One, we would." The Ancient One nodded. "From now on, I will be your teacher. I will teach you the art of magic and how to cultivate your character." Russell abruptly looked at the Ancient One, telepathically asking, "Master, why are you stealing my disciple?" The Ancient One glanced at Russell, her silence speaking volumes. "Do you even know how to teach?" Russell sighed helplessly and left dejectedly. Disciples and junior disciples were all the same, exploited equally. At least he didn't have to put in the effort to arrange things for his junior disciple. Teacher, the brother and sister, unsure how to properly greet a master, could only bow to the Ancient One as a gesture of apprenticeship. The Ancient One didn't correct them, accepting the bow gracefully. After rising, watching Russell's departing figure, the brother and sister's expressions were conflicted. Finally, they asked loudly, "Master, who are you? Why did you save us? And why do you know our story?" Hearing the voices behind him, Russell didn't turn around. He hadn't yet figured out how to answer these questions. "His name is Russell," the Ancient One explained for Russell, the next Sorcerer Supreme. He probably wanted to retire early, but seeing your talent and potential to become the next Sorcerer Supreme, he saved you and brought you back to Kamartaj to learn." The siblings asked, "Sorcerer Supreme, can we be too?" The Ancient One nodded. "Wanda could. Pietro had a chance, though not a huge one." "Then, can we be as strong as Sorcerer Russell in the future?" the siblings asked again, their voices filled with disbelief and anticipation. The Ancient One remained silent. Why did every new disciple have to be compared to Russell? Trying to comfort them was exhausting. Wanda and Pietro hadn't become sorcerers yet, hadn't formally begun their training. They viewed Russell like frogs in a well looking at the moon. Only when they formally began their training, reaching roughly her level, would they understand. It was like a mayfly seeing the blue sky. After a moment of silence, the Ancient One still offered her two new disciples a hearty pep talk. "Russell is older than you and has cultivated for a longer time, so naturally he's stronger. But he wasn't strong from the start. Not many people are born strong. As long as you persevere and practice diligently year after year, you too will become like him, powerful sorcerers, far exceeding your past imaginations. Yes, like Russell, become powerful sorcerers, not as powerful as Russell." The Ancient One implied, "You've misunderstood, it's not that I'm lying. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels." Chapter 49 Asgard. In the vast expanse of deep space, a nebula-like substance crystallized, covering a massive area. A deep blue ocean flowed towards the edges, transforming into a spectacular waterfall-like formation. At the center of the ocean, majestic palaces and statues stood tall, a vibrant rainbow spanning the entire realm. Asgard. The heavenly palace of Norse mythology, the leader of the Alliance of the Nine Realms. A renowned power in the universe. Asgard, a continent adrift in the depths of space, belongs to no star system. It has no revolution, no rotation. Logically, it should have no seasons or day and night. But magic and technology combined to alter this continent, giving it a unique cycle of seasons and the alternation of day and night. On the Rainbow Bridge, the figures of the Ancient One and Russell slowly emerged, walking towards the shimmering golden palace at the center of Asgard. Inside the palace, the Asgardian gods, clad in magnificent armor and draped in star-studded cloaks, stood silently, their gazes fixed ahead, as if waiting. Deep within the palace, Odin sat high on his throne, the king of the gods. A series of footsteps echoed from outside. Russell and the Ancient One, dressed in stark white robes, their presence incongruous with the atmosphere, entered the palace, drawing the attention of the other gods. Were these the distinguished guests they had been waiting for? Their auras were restrained, concealed, and their strength impossible to gauge. Seeing the Ancient One and Russell arrive as promised, Odin nodded, gesturing for them to sit. Under normal circumstances, Odin would not have received the Sorcerer Supreme of Kamartaj with such grandeur. But times were different. He was about to return to Valhalla. Thor needed time to become a true king and fully awaken Odin's power. During this period of vulnerability, Kamartaj's assistance was crucial. Moreover, when Odin's gaze swept over Russell, his heart skipped a beat. I sensed danger in this young man. This was highly unusual. At this moment, Odin's body could no longer sustain a prolonged battle, but his divine power had reached its peak. His theoretical combat strength shouldn't pose a threat to a sorcerer. Ancient One greets Odin, the God King, entering the hall and taking their seats. The Ancient One gave Odin a sorcerer's salute. Russell followed suit. Russell greets Odin, the God King. Odin returned the salute to both of them. Odin Borson greets the Ancient One, the Supreme Sorcerer. Greetings, Sorcerer Russell. After the Ancient One and Russell were seated, cheers soon erupted from outside the hall. Accompanied by the cheers of the Asgardians, a burly figure clad in armor, wielding a warhammer, and wearing a vibrant red cloak walked in. It was none other than Odin's son, the successor to the Asgardian God King, Thor Odinson. Whoa whoa whoa, cheers rose and fell as Thor walked. Every now and then, Thor struck various poses in response to the applause and cheers. The applause and cheers only subsided when Thor entered the palace and stood before Odin. Thor knelt on one knee in Odin's direction. He set down Mjolnir, the hammer of Thor, removed his helmet, revealing thick, golden hair that shone like a young lion. He looked up, offering a warm smile. Thor slightly turned his head, exchanging glances with the people in the hall. When his gaze swept over the Ancient One and Russell, Thor paused slightly. Then, he flashed a bright, sunny smile. As if he had known the Ancient One and Russell for a long time. Clang. Odin rose, supporting himself with Spear of Eternity, and lightly tapped the ground with it. The sound echoed, and the hall fell silent instantly. Odin's calm voice, tinged with reminiscence, rang out, Thor Odinson. My heir, my eldest son. The mighty hammer of Thor has long been entrusted to you, forged from the core of a dying star, its power unmatched. It is a weapon of destruction, and also a tool of construction, befitting a king. From the beginning of time, I have protected Asgard and the innocent lives of the 9 kingdoms. But this day has come. Do you swear to protect the 9 kingdoms? Hearing Odin's words, the expressions of those in the hall varied. Russell noticed a flicker of unease on Loki's face. Clearly, Loki harbored resentment towards Thor's coronation. Russell gave the Ancient One a signal with his eyes. The Ancient One returned a look that said, observe and let it be, don't interfere, I swear, Thor replied calmly, his voice resolute. Do you swear to maintain peace? I swear. Do you swear to abandon all selfish ambitions and do only what is beneficial to the kingdom? Odin's speech quickened, the last question seemingly directed at Thor, yet his gaze seemed to be fixed on Loki. Loki slightly turned his head to the side, while Thor raised his hand and shouted, I swear. Then, today, I, Odin, the Allfather, proclaim you. Sizzle sizzle. Just then, the sound of the ground freezing into ice echoed from afar. At the most crucial moment, the frost giants invaded, attempting to steal the casket of ice, interrupting Thor's coronation ceremony. The ceremony was interrupted, and Russell and the Ancient One remained in Asgard temporarily. The guards led the Ancient One and Russell to a side hall and stood watch at a distance outside the door. Seeing that no one was around, Russell couldn't help but complain to the Ancient One, Ancient One, this is so boring. Odin and the Asgardians did not neglect the Ancient One and Russell. Their lodgings were luxurious and comfortable, and the food was exquisite and delicious. Outside the palace gates, guards were at your beck and call. Passers-by were all incredibly welcoming. But Russell knew no one here. Most importantly, he couldn't freely project his spiritual energy or open portals. Russell was a little unsure what to do. The Ancient One simply smiled, continuing to eat her fruit, ignoring Russell's complaints. Ancient One, do you know what's going to happen? Seeing that the Ancient One didn't respond, Russell asked another question. The Ancient One shook her head, I don't know what will happen, but I have a feeling this won't go smoothly. Russell looked at the Ancient One in confusion. A feeling? What kind of logic is that? Sensing Russell's confusion, the Ancient One explained, a sorcerer's intuition is usually very accurate. After finishing the fruit on her plate, the Ancient One washed her hands. I'm not talking to you anymore, I'm going to go talk to Queen Frigga. Russell's face darkened. So you have acquaintances in Asgard, so you're leaving me all alone here? No, I need to go out and explore too. After tidying up, Russell got up and headed outside. He planned to wander around and buy some Asgardian souvenirs to take back with him. As for the money? Of course, it would be charged to the Ancient One. As the Ancient One, the Sorcerer Supreme of Kamartaj and a disciple of the Vishanti, could she possibly renege on her debt? Thanks to readers 20220372300051006, +6652555, and 20180627143545738 for their monthly tickets. Chapter 50 Russell, I'm going to wipe out Asgard. 8,000 years ago, the frost giants of Jotunheim invaded Midgard. They threatened to plunge the human world into a new ice age. Odin, the god king, summoned the Asgardian army to join forces with the forces of Midgard to fight the frost giants. Ultimately, under Odin's leadership, the allied forces defeated the frost giants, safeguarding the peace of the Nine Realms. This is known as the Battle of Tunsberg. When discussing Asgard's glorious conquest of the Nine Realms, the guests in attendance at the banquet puffed out their chests with pride. Although Thor's coronation ceremony was interrupted, the Asgardians attending the celebration still held many banquets. Feeling bored, Russell followed the attendants and participated in one of them. Warlock Russell, Warlock Russell, Warlock Russell. Moving through the banquet, people frequently greeted Russell, who responded with a smile and a nod. As one of the two mages receiving such a grand reception, Russell was quite well known in Asgard. Many people were quite curious about his abilities. The adults could control their curiosity and maintain their manners, but the children were less so. Just as Russell found a seat, ready to savor the Asgardian cuisine and listen to the stories of Asgard told at the banquet, a child suddenly ran up to him and asked curiously, "Master Russell, do you know magic? Like Lord Loki, can you create many versions of yourself?" The child's question attracted everyone's attention. They too wanted to know what abilities Russell possessed. Russell smiled at the child but didn't answer, continuing to drink his special Asgardian mead. Just as everyone thought Russell was too aloof, and the child felt disappointed, a hand patted his shoulder, and Russell's voice came from behind him. "You mean, like this?" In front of the child, Russell's true form was drinking mead. No one present had noticed when Russell had created a clone and moved behind the child. Wow, okay, clap clap clap. Russell's magical performance drew applause and cheers from the crowd. Russell raised his glass, gesturing, "Drink, drink." In fact, the clone and the form of Ekron and Loki's clone were not the same thing. Loki's wasn't a clone, but an illusion. He just liked to make the illusion look like himself, which made it resemble a clone. Hiccup. The Asgardians, indeed, are very honest and kind. After several hours of fighting, Russell prepared to leave. He had gotten everyone drinking at the banquet drunk. Just then, a tall figure in armor sat down in front of Russell. Thor? Shouldn't he be planning his attack on Jotunheim, one of the Nine Realms, the lair of the frost giants who interrupted his coronation ceremony? Even with a troubled heart, Thor forced a smile. "I heard that you, Wizard Russell, have already drunk down over 100 Asgardian warriors, and you're still not satisfied. Now, let us join you." Looking up, he saw not only Thor, but also Loki, Sif, and the warriors 3 of Asgard. Russell's expression was strange. Were they on their way to conquer Jotunheim when they heard about my exploits? So they planned to come and get me drunk before attacking Jotunheim? How capricious. However, this might delay your plans. Drink. Without further ado, Russell raised his glass. No matter how many people came, he was going to wipe out Asgard today. After countless rounds of wine and dishes, Thor and the others were already tipsy, but Russell remained calm. Russell's constitution meant that whatever he ate or drank, he only tasted it. The concepts of being full and drunk were long gone from his mind. Perhaps realizing that continuing to drink would jeopardize the crucial attack on Jotunheim and uncover the truth behind the frost giants' invasion of Asgard, Sif and the Warriors 3 began urging Thor to drink more. "Fandral Hogan, Thor, I toast you. You led us into the most glorious battle. Volstagg, Thor, I also toast you. You gave me delicious food and fine wine, making me feel blissful. Sif, Thor, I also toast you. You supported me when I proved that a young girl could be the kingdom's bravest warrior." Yes, they were urging Thor to drink more, not less. Although Sif and the Warriors 3 had agreed to accompany Thor in battle, it didn't mean they were unaware that this was defying Odin's orders. Now, with this fortuitous opportunity to stop Thor, they naturally wanted to seize it. "Alright, drink." Thor accepted all the toasts. In a daze, he felt their words sounded familiar. These sounded like his own words. "That's exactly what I just told you, to join me in conquering Jotunheim." Loki, who had drunk less but remained lucid, looked on helplessly. His meticulously planned scheme had been so dramatically ruined. First, he released 3 frost giants into Asgard to disrupt Thor's coronation. Then, he stirred up trouble, inciting Thor to disobey Odin's orders and lead a few friends to attack Jotunheim alone. All of the above had gone smoothly, but the later part of the plan unexpectedly fell through. The plan was for him to tip them off, allowing Odin to save them at a crucial moment. Then, when Odin reprimanded Thor, he would fan the flames, making Odin dislike Thor. But this sorcerer could really drink. Thor was almost drunk, while he was completely unaffected. Loki looked at Russell with astonishment. Although they also tempered their bodies, a sorcerer's training was primarily mental. Compared to the physique of Thor, a member of the Asgardian god-king race, there was no comparison. As Russell downed cup after cup of mead, Loki sensed no magical fluctuations. He was digesting the alcohol and food entirely through his physical strength. In other words, this sorcerer's physique was stronger than Thor's, and by a considerable margin. After observing Russell for a moment, Loki asked, "Sorcerer Russell, are you a Midgardian?" He couldn't understand why our Russell could drink so much without any problems. Normally, Asgardians were 3 times stronger than Midgardians. Thor's physique far surpassed that of ordinary Asgardians. Russell shook his head in denial. No, Russell wasn't from Earth in this timeline. He came from the original timeline's Earth, China. Both his body and soul were the same. Loki suddenly understood. So that explained it. This Russell, besides being a sorcerer, was likely also a powerful warrior. A powerful warrior who had fallen into Midgard, skilled in both physical and magical arts. Was there a chance to win him over and get his support in succeeding as God King? I may not have Thor's prestige in Asgard, but I can find outside help, Loki thought to himself. Russell listened silently as well. He knows I'm a sorcerer, yet he's completely unguarded. He can't blame me for eavesdropping. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.